Then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what... There's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It is Wednesday. We have reached the middle of the week. It's the 20th of August and we are here for your delectation. It is Morning Glory, the home of common sense. We are absolutely suited and booted, unlike Volodymyr Zelensky when he went over to Washington, D.C. Yeah, he put a jacket on, but it wasn't really a jacket. It wasn't really a suit. Theo Rushwood's here with me, looking very well. I'm also here wearing a suit. And here's what we're going to tell you. The government and the Home Office and Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer have been humiliated, completely and utterly humiliated, as if they were stripped bare and made to parade naked down at Whitehall to say to everybody, do you know what? We got it completely wrong about the migrants. We got it completely wrong when we decided to reopen the Bell Hotel in Epping and put a load of single men in there because not only has one of them been accused of an alleged offence against a young woman, but all of them are now going to have to be moved out of the hotel thanks to a High Court ruling which came in yesterday because the local council took the government to court and won. And it is, let me tell you, no small thing. This is one of the biggest developments in the history of politics in this country because we have had 14 years of the Tories. We've just had 1 year of Labour, but basically they decided, in their wisdom, at some point or other during that period, that it was a good idea to house migrants who come here illegally in hotels. Give them free access to the local town. Give them free movement. Give them free food. Give them free bicycles to drive around in if they wanted to deliver food and actually work illegally. Give them free everything, right? And look after them. Get doctors to come and see them. Get dentists to come and see them and have them treated as if they were indeed five-star passengers on a cruise ship. But now the High Court has ruled that basically the hotel, the Bell Hotel in question, is housing these people incorrectly and illegally because the Bell Hotel is no longer a hotel because it is now not operating as a hotel. And so that is the key point in this entire argument. What it means is a victory for small Britain, a victory for all the ordinary people, a victory for the mums and the dads and the children of Epping, the people who didn't fancy having to walk around the hotel so that they didn't get catcalled by by the migrants inside it, so that they didn't have to worry about being followed down the street, so they didn't have to worry about being molested or assaulted or even raped, OK? The local people of Epping have won a massive victory, and that massive victory is now going to be played out in the rest of the entire country, because every single migrant hotel now is under siege. Every single migrant hotel now is at risk of being shut down and the migrants kicked out, because the High Court has finally seen reason. It is a victory for common sense. It is a victory for us here at Talk. It is a victory for you, the good people of Great Britain, who have been coming onto the phone to me for the best part of the last 4 years going, what the hell is going on? Why the hell are we opening our doors to these people? Why the hell are we inviting them in? Why the hell are we giving them everything? And they're just abusing us, abusing our daughters, abusing our sisters, abusing our wives, and abusing any woman that they can come across, because basically they come from medieval countries with ridiculous attitudes about female personages, because they can't hold themselves to account. They can't walk down the street without wanting to expose themselves. They can't walk down the street without wanting to touch a woman's breast. They can't walk down the street without wanting to put their arms around them or put their hands down the back of their trousers. You know, these people are uncivilised, they're unwelcome, and they're unwanted. And the sooner we get them kicked out of this country, the better. It's as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 minutes past 6. Let's get it on. There is some other news as well, of course, but that does seem to be the main dominating story on most of the front pages. The Times says High Court puts asylum hotel policy into turmoil. The Daily Mail, Labour's migrant hotels policy in disarray. The Sun has got a story about Oasis, but we'll get to that later. Asylum hotels policy in chaos. The Telegraph, migrant hotels facing closure. Even The Guardian has got High Court rules asylum seekers must be moved from protest hotel. I mean, it is a massive blow to Yvette Cooper, a massive blow to Keir Starmer, and a massive blow to Labour's policy about migrants. Theo, very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you.
I'm sorry to kick off with such a sort of a rant, but at the end of the day, this is a massive, massive story, isn't it?
Huge story, and it all comes down to the Town and Country Planning Act, because when Somani Hotels changed, which owns the Bell Hotel, changed from being a normal hotel where you can walk in
and
you
walk
can
in
pay
and book
for
a room, right? I'm told, by the way, that before they got the contract from the government, that their occupancy rate was 1%.
Yeah, so you can see why they decided.
It's not exactly the Four Seasons, is it?
No, but you can see then why they fought this so vociferously in the High Court, because this was guaranteed income for Somani Hotels. So when they decided to go from being a hotel where you go in and you pay for a room to being accommodation for men from asylum seekers who have come to this country, that represents, the court ruled, a substantial change in use. And anybody else has to apply for a change in use through the council.
And it's a planning permission thing, isn't it?
It's a planning permission, and they didn't do it. And the judge in this case was very clear that the hotel group sidestepped public scrutiny, because, of course, had they applied for the change in use, that would be scrutinised by councillors on Epping Council, and also the public would get to have a say. But of course they didn't.
And
want
you'd
to do
also
that.
get to weigh up: is it a good idea to put these people, single men, young single men of fighting age, into a place where literally next door there's a school?
Yeah, they wouldn't. And of course,
they might have got. No, I'm sorry, you can't do that.
Of course, they just decided to run roughshod over the rules, and now the High Court has come in and said they've got to the migrants have got to be removed.
Right. And the significant part of that story, and I said this yesterday on Jeremy Carl's show, is that basically if that's the precedent that has now been set, which means that any hotel which is operating as a migrant hotel is now no longer a hotel under the new planning rules, then every single other hotel which is no longer a hotel will have to be shut down as well.
So you could get the council up in Disses in Norfolk.
Diss in Norfolk, yeah.
So
go to Altrincham up in Manchester.
Right. So you would get the hotel group in Altrincham or in Diss saying, well, no, we're allowed to do this. And now the council up in Norfolk or in Greater Manchester will go to the High Court and say, no, thank you, we don't want this. Our residents are absolutely furious about it. And the High Court judge said, well, actually, I think this is perfectly okay. And they'll go, no, go to the High Court, see what happened down in Epping, and it does represent a substantial change in use. That's the precedent, and that's what the government fear with this. Now, it could go, from this point on, Mike, it can go one of two ways. I have a fear about which way it's going to go. you will have a view about which way it should go. But the danger is, of course, that these migrants get moved out of hotels and they just get moved into houses of multiple occupancy. So you end up with these men.
That will be a mistake. That will be a massive mistake. What they've got to do, and this is my message to the government now, you want to get out of the shtuck that you're in, you've got to start deporting people immediately. Just start putting them on planes and get them the hell out, because that's what people of this country want. You know, we have seen in the past month an incredible rise in public protest, very peaceful, by the way. One of the things that Yvette Cooper's Home Office did was they challenged this case at the last minute. I mean, how useless is that, by the way? They came in on the night before the trial was about to start and put their case to the judge and said, look, you know, we really need to reject
And what
this.
did they use?
We
Human
need,
rights legislation.
Yeah, we need to keep these people in the hotel because otherwise it will risk, you know, damage to the community, la-di-la-di-la. You know, but what they didn't say was what their plan is for the future, because they've told us that they're supposed to be moving them out of hotels anyway. That's what they want to do, right? Yeah. And we know that in that case they have to put them into private housing in some way, shape or form. This will now put a really fine focus on that, and they won't be able to do that. They're going to have to deport them. Simple.
But look, this is a Home Office, Mike, that when it came down to it in the court, they used Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights, which was basically the argument that we've got to uphold our statutory duty. This is the Home Office. This is what the Home Office is saying to these migrants, and that's why we've got to end. We've got to ensure these migrants can stay in the hotel. Yeah, and the
KC operating for the hotel apparently said, you know, this will be detrimental to the health of the migrants if we have to move them out. Nobody cares about them.
Yeah, well, that's
sorry,
but your, you know, talk station of common sense would say, well, deport them or find. Or put them
in a detention centre.
You know, there aren't.
Sorry, we've been told 13 days ago, and I'm going to play the video. 13 days ago, according to Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, both recorded and said it on public broadcast. Anyone who comes to this country illegally will be detained and returned. That's what they told us. Do you want to see it?
Yeah,
let's see it. Let's have a look. Come on, let's play the greatest hits of Keir Starmer. Here we go.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally. This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain, and the jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist because of the nationwide crackdown we're delivering on illegal working, which is on a completely unprecedented scale.
Yeah, all right, Keir. So apparently, according to the Prime Minister, who surely is not a liar, is he? No. 12 days ago, anyone who comes to this country illegally will be detained and returned in short order, was his words.
Yeah, we haven't had a press release since, have we? On how many people have
funnily enough, Yvette Cooper...
Have I missed it?
No, funnily enough, Yvette Cooper said that we were going to get regular updates. It was pointed out to me that Halley's Comet is also regular. It comes around every 76 years. So she's got some time. But she has made no update since 12 days ago as to who they've detained, whether they're going to be kicked out of the country, and when.
Yeah, regular rather than frequent.
Yes, yes. Should we have a go at that as well? No, let's go. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's enjoy Wednesday.
Well, we'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started and the first migrants who arrived on the small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
Yeah, they don't want to operate in any way to help out the criminal gangs, right? So I'm just checking Yvette Cooper's Twitter, and looks like the last entry is from the 7th of August. Right, yeah. So we still haven't heard any regular updates. We don't know what's happened. The pilot has started.
But if we get the next update in 2 weeks, in another 2 weeks, let's say we get the next update on the 7th of September.
Right.
I don't know if we will. And then we get an update on the 7th of October and an update on the 7th of October, or November. Then they could say they're regular updates. They're just every month.
Yeah, you're being far too generous, I think.
I'm literally dancing on the head of a pin.
Stephen Swinford, political editor of the Times, put this out last night, just apropos of what has happened. The Home Office attempted to stop the Asylum Hotel in Epping from being closed on the following basis. One, it would substantially interfere with the Home Secretary's statutory duty to house asylum seekers under the Human Rights Act. Two, specifically it says there is a risk of breaching the rights of asylum seekers under Article 3, as you said, of the ECHR, which prohibits torture and inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. I mean, it's not a very nice hotel, but I wouldn't call it inhuman or degrading.
I've been there, no,
number three, there are very considerable constraints on asylum accommodation. Four, the injunction would require the Home Office to relocate a sizable number of people in 14 days. That's a big problem for them because they've got to get them out in 2 weeks. And even if they apply for some kind of appeal, I think they still have to move them out first. Four, the injunction would require the Home Office... sorry, we've done that one. The injunction could act as an impetus for further violent protests around asylum hotels. There haven't been any violent protests. The people have been demonstrating outside in a very peaceful manner, and it's almost been like a vigil where they've just stood there and the police have turned up. And yes, there was a couple of scuffles early on.
But there were counter-protests when the Chief Constable was bringing them in.
Let's not forget the Chief Constable was assisting the left and Antifa to come into Epping from the station, the railway station, from places outside of Epping to demonstrate on behalf of a group who wanted to keep the asylum seekers there, who were, stand up to racism, I think it was, funded by the Unite Union. He also says other local authorities could seek interim injunctions as a result of the protest, which I was saying earlier. That could become the new norm, which it will become. The Home Office says the Bell Hotel is an appropriate site for accommodating asylum seekers despite protests. The fact of an alleged criminal offence is not grounds to close the hotel. Well, I'm afraid the judge disagreed with that. It came down to planning laws, specifically the Town and Country Planning Order of 1987. And the point is, as we say, this is happening all over the country. I only found out yesterday a hotel quite close to where I live here in London is apparently going to be taken over and used for asylum seekers. So despite the fact that they're saying one thing, i.e. we're moving people out of asylum...
How did you find that out, by the way?
I found that out from local residents who talk to each other and who know people that work in the hotel and who know that, for example, you cannot now book a room there any time after about the 7th of September.
So you didn't find out because the hotel group had gone through the statutory requirements of a change in use, and there'd been a sign on a lamppost under the council's heading saying that we're going to change this into That's what
annoys people, because suddenly you wake up one morning and there's a load of migrants being bussed into your street, and you're thinking, where did they come from? And how did that happen? And I think this particular situation is a massive setback for the government, because they now know that not only do they want to move people out of hotels, they're going to have to start doing it.
But it's going to... looking at where, and this is Stephen Swinford in the Times has got another part to his story where he's talking about, the fact that they're going to move them into houses of multiple occupancy. That's the direction the government wants to go in, and that would be, potentially you're creating... But they're going to make the situation worse.
But if that's where they want to go, it will make it worse. But why did they then challenge this? Because surely this is what they want. They want to move them out of hotels, and then they could say, if they had any brains, they could go, well, the High Court's told us we have to move them out of the hotel, so now we have to put them somewhere else.
But I think they realise what's going to happen, right? They don't want to put them into houses of multiple occupancy, but that's the way they're going to go. It's going to mean less accommodation costs are going to go up, because if you're a landlord, are you going to do the equivalent of what Somani hotels have done, where you're thinking, actually, I've got a house of multiple occupancy here, I can just rack up the rents and charge it out to the Home Office and fill all my rooms immediately and not have to worry about my income.
Well, people have asked that question, would it be possible for, say, for example, the government and the Home Office to buy the hotel and just put them up that way and say, well, now it's an HMO? They could do that, but I think, again, there'd be a massive backlash, because people would say, hang on, that's our money. You're spending public taxpayers' money on buying a hotel to house these scumbags. Sorry, I don't think it's a good idea.
No, it's not a good idea, right? You're going to end up in a situation where you're going to have, large homes, which should be family homes, or they should be, there is a housing crisis in this country. We know there's a housing crisis in this country, where large homes are going to be converted into bedrooms, bedsits, basically, and housing migrants. That's going to put pressure on the housing system that's already under significant pressure, where people can't afford to rent. The prices are going to go up, and there's going to be a lack of availability of housing for families in this country because these houses are going to be used. At the same time, look, I'm not making excuses to the Bell Hotel, but you go to the Bell Hotel, and everybody in the community, everybody in Epping knows that that's the Bell Hotel, right? And it is with migrants. What you're going to end up with is situations where you have people dotted around, migrants dotted around communities. It's an absolute recipe for disaster.
It is. It totally is. It's a powder keg. Absolutely right. Imagine how Sky News would cover this story, right? Check this out.
I wonder how the owners of the Bell Hotel are feeling, because this is a significant financial loss for them. And as a district councillor, surely you're also concerned about the finances of your businesses in the area.
Well, they've been doing pretty well out of the finances that they've received from the Home Office in recent years. And I understand that they have several hotels being used for this purpose.
That's Councillor Holly Whitbread, who we're going to be talking to later on from Epping. Wouldn't you know that Sky News and their presenters are more concerned about the people who own the hotel, and they're worried that they might be losing some money as a result of this? I mean, what sort of bozos are they?
Well, look,
I'm not asking you to slag off your fellow journalists, but I'm going to slag them off. Absolutely disgraceful.
They are going to look. The hotel is going to lose out. As you said,
Good.
what was it? What was the
Care less.
What was the figure you said? 1%.
Their occupancy rate was 1% before they did the deal with the Home Office.
Yeah, and now
it doesn't look like a very nice place.
No,
I'm not going there for a holiday.
No.
Let's go to Epping. You know, I mean, love Epping as we do.
New Forest,
the kids' faces, you know, when you go, where are we going on holiday, Dad? Epping. What? We're going to stay in this place called the Bell Hotel. I don't think so.
But if you look at what's been going on, say, down in Bournemouth, where
Bournemouth is a terrible state, unbelievable. Jeremy Carr was telling me at the weekend he was down in Sandbanks, right, which is one of the richest communities in Britain, completely overrun with migrants, completely.
Yeah,
they got 1,000 migrants in 3 hotels, and the beaches look like something out of you know, West Africa.
But
shocking.
Bournemouth. You can't, you know, that is somewhere that families will want to go to, and they can't go there and they can't afford it because the hotels are being. This was covered in the Sun.
The Sunday Times did a piece. There's a vigilante group now walking around the streets of Bournemouth every night. 3 guys and 1 woman, and they're recruiting more people. It's like the Guardian Angels did in New York back in the 1980s to protect the girls and the women of that part of the world.
You're doing the same thing in Bedford as well, aren't you?
I mean, this is happening everywhere. So this whole story has begun in Epping, in a way. It's now ended in Epping, and the rest of the country is going to feel the force of this court ruling. And I see an incredibly great thing for the people of Britain. But the government has got to hold its nerve, and it's got to kick these people out. What it's got to do is accept it and say, we got this wrong. Because don't forget, it was the Tories that actually shut. Robert Jenrick had put out a tweet yesterday, he was on the show. They shut the Bell Hotel down for migrants, right? And Labour reopened it and put more migrants in and took out, removed the families and just put in single men. Ridiculous. Here's what Keir Starmer tweeted yesterday about people smuggling. So that's one bloke. Is that the same bloke he's been talking about all this time? You know, the people smuggler who they managed to actually arrest and now convict. They're one person, and there's the migrant tracker. It hasn't moved, by the way, since Monday. I don't believe that should be the same number, 51,239. It was that on Monday. We need to update it, I think, because I suspect it's now closer to 53,000.
Yeah.
And they've got one guy, and that's what they're boasting about with that ridiculous sort of XTC. You know, we're making plans for Nigel. You better start making some plans for Nigel because he's coming for you. You know. Anyway, listen, we're running over time. We're going to play you some other clips about Keir Starmer's trip to Washington DC. You know. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is an old film, which you're probably too young to remember. But Mr. Starmer went to Washington and made absolutely no impact at all, apart from the fact that he appeared with a cold sore. Let's get a voice note from Michael.
Same thing happened at the Stradey Park Hotel in Wales, in Llanelli. They eventually got the migrants kicked out and the hotel was returned to a hotel. The downside of it was
the government had to pay for the refurbish of the hotel that they had trashed and vandalised inside. So the cost still goes on. Where does it stop with these people?
Yeah, it's a very, very good point, Michael. I remember the Strelly Park Hotel in Wales, and you know, again, it was local people who went out and demonstrated and made their feelings known. And what Nigel Farage said yesterday was, this is a massive moment for the ordinary people of this country, because it shows that if you make a demonstration and you do it right, and you do it with dignity, and you do it without violence, and you do it, you know, peacefully, you can actually change things in this country.
Yeah, and what's, you know, Labour is under pressure in terms of the control of these councils that, of course, put in these applications to say that planning laws have been broken, and that actually the government, you know, hotels need to be, you know, returned to their proper use of being hotels. And we've seen Reform in the local elections make significant gains. And, you know, I read Nigel Farage's statement. Make no mistake about it, the diktat will be going down from Reform HQ over in Millbank Town, just a couple of miles from where we are, Mike, to say to Reform Council leaders, find out whether, get a list of the hotels, get that application in right now to the High Court to say that planning laws have been broken. And they're controlling they're controlling something like, you know, 12 councils, I think it's actually as many as 15 councils across the country, where they are the largest party, or they actually have outright control of the council. We've got council elections coming up next May. Tories will be doing it because they also control a number of councils as well with Reform. The only councils that won't be Labour.
Yeah, no, I've already got a note overnight from Broxburn Borough Council, which says basically the Delta Marriott Hotel in Cheshunt is currently housing illegal migrants. Broxburn Borough Council would now take action. The UK has woken up, and that's going to be happening this morning all over the place.
And they'll just be putting in the applications really quickly, because they know this judgment means that they will win. Because if any judge comes back and says, oh, no, I agree with the Home Office, no, sorry, High Court.
Yeah,
no,
High
that's
Court.
what happens.
There's your precedent. I'm afraid you just follow that. Listen, Theo Rushwood is here. It's Mike Graham here with you as well until 10 o'clock, 6:26. Back after this with more from Keir Starmer's adventures in Washington.
They're going to tax you on buying the property, tax you on selling the property. What it will do will freeze the property market up. It will freeze it up completely. It will stop people wanting to buy a property, and it will also, people like me and many others, it will drive or force us out of the UK even more. If you're thinking of leaving the UK, sell your house now before she brings it in, because she will bring this in very quickly. It's another way of robbing working class people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 29 minutes past 6. It is, of course, Wednesday, the 20th of August. I mean, what a day to be alive, right? We're going to sit here and celebrate pretty much through the morning, all about how and why the British public, the great British public, finally woke up. I said to Jeremy Kyle yesterday on his show, the woke have actually awoken. And so forget about the old word for woke, Theo. This is now the new word for woke. The new woke is actually great because people have been sick to death, have been dictated to by various governments, being told that they have to put up with things, being told that they got no say. And guess what? You're just going to have a load of migrants living at the end of your street and we're not going to let you do anything about it. So finally now, you know, the beast has arisen, the lion has woken up, and we're saying, no, enough already. You know, shut the bleeding place down, kick these people out, and then we'll start again. And if you're lucky, you might even have a chance of winning an election. But if you don't do it, and if you keep messing with us and you keep pushing and saying we have to look after these people, they're very vulnerable, you know, we are going to revolt. And that's what's happened. This has been a people's revolt, and it's been an incredible victory.
Yeah, and it's come from the parents and the community in Epping that have put pressure on. I don't think the council needed a huge amount of pressure, but they've successfully, you know, they've made their strength of feeling known. The council, obviously, if there was any dissent, certainly wasn't going to, you know, realise the strength of feeling in the community, and they've put in a challenge, and they've argued successfully. And they've done it well. And you know, the problem for the government now is where does it go from here?
And they're literally running around, I bet you any money this morning, like chickens with their heads cut off. Yeah. Because Yvette Cooper, as we said, still hasn't given us an update. Here's an update for you, Yvette. You've got completely strangulated, your policies have been rubbished, and your entire kind of plan has been torn up and thrown in the river.
They've got to
what are you going to do now?
They've got to start, they're not thinking outside the box, and they're not prepared to think. They're just thinking in sort of home office sort of straight lines. This is what we do. These are the rules that we've got to follow. You know, that's ultimately
that's why. That's
why. But that's why they abandoned. We're not. It's really important to understand. Like the government keep on saying we inherited this mess from the Tories. Right?
No.
They did to an extent, but not completely. No,
but like I said, the Tories shut the Bell Hotel down and said no more migrants there. Labour reopened it.
But we're up 48% January to July 2025. It's up 40% on January to July 2024.
Yes, exactly.
We're going to surpass 50,000. So there's more people coming. More people coming. Yeah. We are going to surpass 50,000 for the first time this year. Look, they didn't. The problem for Rishi Sunak is he hyped it up with this slogan, "Stop the boats." He didn't stop the boats, but he did reduce the number of migrants crossing the English Channel down from 46,000 to 29,000. Now, I'm not saying
they actually did reduce it, which is worth mentioning.
He brought the numbers down, and one of the reasons that the numbers came down wasn't necessarily credit to Rishi Sunak; it was credit to Boris Johnson, who came up with the Rwanda scheme. And actually, that was something where people were like, "Oh, hold on a minute, no." Now, of course, it never materialised because he wasn't willing.
Labour killed it. They didn't give it a chance to go. Didn't give it a chance. We've got to move on because we've got lots to get on with in this particular hour. We've got loads of great messages coming in. Thank you very much for all of them. We'll get to them in a moment. I've been asked to point out that the tweet from Starmer about the people smuggling video, the people smuggling gangs, I got it wrong. Apparently, they haven't arrested and convicted one person. It's two people. Have a look. I thought it was the same bloke. And they played his... There's some people walking up some stairs. There's some people walking around bags. There you go. Apparently there's these guys, two different people apparently. Looks like the same guy to me, I don't know. They all look alike, these people smuggling gang guns people. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer did when he went on his little trip to Washington, though, because this is funny. This was him on the plane heading out to the Washington Capitol.
This war in Ukraine has been going on a really long time now. I mean, 3+ years. Hugely impacted the Ukrainians, who suffered hugely, but it's also impacted Europe. It's impacted every single family and community in the United Kingdom, and so everybody wants it to end, not least the Ukrainians. But we've got to get this right. We've got to make sure there is peace, that it is lasting peace, and that it is fair and that it is just. And that's why I'm travelling to Washington with other European leaders to discuss this face to face with President Trump and President Zelensky, because it's in everyone's interests, it's in the UK's interests that we get this right.
And so he went out to Washington, D.C.,
Air
right?
Force One, it's not.
No. And that's exactly what he said in front of Trump, which is really boring. And here's what he said after he met with Trump. And by the way, they put out a picture of the White House, which didn't include Starmer in it. They cropped him out of it. That's how unimportant he was. He was off to the left. Here's what he said in the embassy of the United Kingdom in Washington afterwards.
So, back at the British Embassy now after a long day, but a good day and a productive day, because both of the outcomes that we, the United Kingdom, most wanted, we've moved forward in a material way. That's why it was an outcome we really wanted to achieve today. The second is that there will now be a bilateral meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky after a phone call by President Trump during the course of this afternoon to President Putin, followed by a trilateral meeting with President Trump as well. Now, these were both the outcomes that we planned for and wanted from today. Because there was that sense of unity, we were able to make real progress.
So we made real progress by getting on a plane, flying to Washington, being told by Donald Trump, I've set up a meeting with Vladimir Putin, which I've already had. I'm also setting up a meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, which they're about to have. And then I'm going to have another meeting with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky. So this is somehow an achievement for Keir Starmer. How exactly? What exactly has his contribution been? Nothing.
No, and just like...
What's he even doing there?
Nobody speaks like that.
Captain Cold Sore.
Nobody speaks like that. If you have an argument with your wife and then you make it better, you say, well, I've just been speaking to my wife.
Yeah.
And we've got the outcome that we were after.
Yes.
We've agreed that actually I do have to put the bins out on a Wednesday.
And I am actually complete and utter 24-carat.
But this only has come about after my wife and I had a bilateral meeting at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And then we invited our son in because we wanted to make it a trilateral meeting. But we did reach the desired outcome.
Yeah.
Where
You sound eerily like Keir Starmer. In fact, the only difference is that he's not even talking about his own wife. He's actually talking about somebody else's wife and somebody else's agreement. Because it's not even about him.
No.
He's got nothing to do with any of this.
But
And why does he even try and claim some kind of like ownership of it? You know, what happened between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump? Nothing to do with Starmer.
Yeah.
The fact that there was now a meeting set up between Putin and Zelensky, nothing to do with Starmer. The fact that there's now going to be a meeting between Trump and Putin and Zelensky, also nothing to do with Starmer. I mean, he's literally like a fart in the wind. He might as well not be there. Sorry. And just for Daily Express's permission, that doesn't mean I'm apologising for what I just said. Idiots.
Yeah, he's struggling for relevance. Yeah.
He's not relevant. He's not struggling for relevance, and you put it very well, and you're much kinder than I am. He's not relevant. He doesn't need to be in the room. As I said, they put out a picture from the Oval Office, and he wasn't even in it.
No.
And the Finnish Prime Minister, you know, Mr. Grubb, or whatever his name is, I mean, even he was in the picture. Nobody's ever heard of him.
He plays golf with him.
Does he?
He plays golf with Trump, yeah.
Well, does he?
So,
yeah. Oh, okay.
That's what that's what
And also Finland is quite a relevant country because it's actually borders Russia. You know, we don't have a border with Russia. Keir Starmer told us, several weeks ago that we were on a war footing and that we're being attacked by Russia every day. That's what he said.
Yeah, so I think... it's difficult to defend. I think what he's trying to make...
You say that again.
He went over there to stand by Zelensky, and at the same time, he doesn't want to be seen to be like being Zelensky's pal because he doesn't want to irritate Donald Trump and get in the way of his deal.
Yeah, I didn't see any big hugs going on like the word Downing Street.
He just becomes a commentator on events, and a prime minister or any president or prime minister isn't there to commentate on events. They are the event, except he's not the event because the deal's already been done between Trump.
But when we played the clip yesterday of him sitting at the table with Trump, and he literally made the same speech that he just made on the plane on the way out.
Yeah.
Saying, you know, it's very important that we go forward and we find, common ground. Nobody cares what he says.
He's an analogue. And this is part of his problem with his delivery. He's an analogue prime minister, and we're operating in an age of artificial intelligence. It's not working.
Well, the only thing
whoever
that's good
came up with that
about that is that he's artificial. That's the trouble. He comes across as artificial.
It doesn't come across as genuine.
It's genuine.
It's human. No.
All genuine.
No.
You know, and we know that he changed his mind. I think we've got the war footing one, have we? Should we have a go at that? Crisis hits, here we go.
And today, following through on this review, I want to set out 3 fundamental changes that we're going to deliver. First, we are moving to warfighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready.
Ready for what exactly?
Yeah, I saw.
They said he was ready for government, which wasn't true either.
Yeah, but I saw the. I mean, that speech is going to ring. That speech is going to ring hollow. Look, we're talking about the migrant crisis. You know, I saw the Mac cartoon on the front page of the Telegraph.
Yeah.
Do you see that one? Whereas, you know, we've got these. We're going to see off the. We're going to see off Putin with our nuclear jets.
Yeah, yeah.
We're going to drop tactical nuclear weapons. And you know, somebody puts their hand up and says, well, you know, what happens if they arrive on small boats?
Right.
You know, the Russians invade on small boats.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do then?
We're a laughing stock around the world. We can't stop people coming into the country. How the hell are we going to put ourselves on a war footing with anyone?
But that's some, you know, that is everything that encapsulates this government at the moment, is that he talks this game of national security, of seeing off Vladimir Putin, but everybody can see we've got a problem.
Yeah.
So why continue to talk about something else? Like, people aren't stupid.
No.
They're not. They can see what's going on. They listen to the radio. They can read their newspaper, whether it be the Times or the Sun, and everybody can see exactly what's happening. You don't need to pretend to them that for some reason actually it's all different because you're going to invest billions and billions of pounds in a different nuclear deterrent.
No, it doesn't matter. Let's get a quick voice note because we're running terribly late and I'm going to get in terrible trouble. This is Dale on hotels.
Good morning, Mike. Dale from Bexley here. Is it a win for us, though, this migrant hotel being closed down? Because you know what's going to happen? They're going to go into houses. They're going to be spread all around the area into houses now. So every migrant hotel that gets shut down, they go into a house.
Yeah, but that may or may not be the plan. I think they will be under severe pressure, this government, to not do that, because they now know that they're under scrutiny. Let's not forget, one of the things that they've been doing for the best part of the last 5 years, and I include the Conservatives in this, is they've been doing it by stealth. They haven't been telling anyone. Now, there's an awful lot of people watching. There's an awful lot of eyes on them. And if they try and do anything which the public don't like and the public don't want, the public will revolt. And I think that's where they've got a problem. But it's coming up to 6:42. We'll be back, myself and Theo Usherwood, after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 6:43. I'm here with Theo Usherwood. We've got so many messages. Let me start reading some of them. This is how it goes, says Russ in Bedfordshire. See how quick Labour can change a law now. Wait for the change in a planning law in the next 14 days. Well, yeah, but you say that. But the trouble is, we're onto them now. And everybody knows what they're up to. Simon from Durham. While it's a success about the hotel in Epping, the fact is that if the hotels close, these men will be within our communities, posing, in my opinion, a much higher risk. Very possibly. Joanna from Salisbury. Mike, you just wait. Starmer and Harmer will now seek the change of law to override the closing of hotels. You know, yes, I'm sure that all of you have got a very cynical view about all of this, but actually, I think that they've been rumbled, Theo, and this is kind of my point, because we've now, you know, they can't now do it in the middle of the night. Do you remember when they moved all these migrants into the Britannia Hotel and a bus arrived at 1 o'clock in the morning, and because of the fact that there was a couple of citizen journalists knocking around, they actually filmed it and saw these guys getting out of the coach. They can't do anything now in sort of in silence. They can't do it behind closed doors. They can't do it and pretend that they're not doing it. That's what I think is now, the scrutiny is now going to be on them, and I think that's the beginning of the end for them.
I think they're going to be, they're in real trouble with this because, and your correspondent, was it Dale, who messaged in, yes, they're going to put people into houses of multiple occupancy, and they're doing that on the QT. They're not even telling councils. I think we were talking about an example down in Portsmouth?
Yes.
Where there are 22...
22. We had a councillor on yesterday, 22 houses he's discovered, put in by taken over by the Home Office, where they're moving migrants in and not telling anyone.
And they haven't even told the council.
No.
I mean, that's disgraceful.
It is.
That's disgraceful because that's really unfair on the community because you end up in a situation where people aren't being told, and if there is a threat, they don't know that exists. That's bad.
Yeah,
that's
it's
really
bad. Well,
bad.
it's criminal, actually, is what it
it's
is.
Really bad.
Let's do a few more of these. Morning, Mike. What sweet joy, says Nan in Wales. Remember they said the grown-ups are back in charge? Well, it's time to get the kids back. This lot are epping useless. I see what you did there. Mike, surely all these hotel owners have a signed 4 or 5 year government contract, which they will then fully expect to be paid up from as well, says Herne Bay Mike. Yeah, they might well do. But the game is up, I think, is the bottom line. Keith in Lincolnshire says, hi, Mike and Theo, how long will it be before Starmer and his lefty lawyers bring in a bill to overturn the High Court judgment on hotels? Well, I bet you they're looking at that. But again, if they do that, that will make them even more unpopular.
If they wouldn't change the law, they could go to Parliament and vote for it.
They could. But the problem is that now they won't get any support, and I know that they've got their own situation going on with backbenchers and all the rest of it. Jeremy in Exeter says this: while I'm over the moon about the ruling in Epping, my concern is where these illegals will go now. Our next battle should be to keep them out of our communities and to demand through FOIs where they are being moved to. They are likely to be moved into HMOs and to disappear into the system. I'm sure this government will then try to claim they have solved the problem. I shudder to think what could happen with these people being housed in residential areas where women and children will be at even more risk. It's too much to hope for that they'll be deported. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying is that the focus is now on the government. The focus is on the Home Office, and you know, like all things, when newspapers get riled up, you know, they'll all be on this. You know, the Sun, the Times, Telegraph, they'll all be absolutely on this. You know, like flies.
You've also mentioned
moths to a flame.
You also mentioned citizen journalists, and I think that's a really important element in this thing. Is that especially with the use of social media. Everybody's got a smartphone.
Yeah.
It doesn't take, you know, you can't expect this. You know, you can't expect any newspaper to put a reporter outside the Britannia Hotel 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
But if there's
somebody there,
if there's somebody there with a phone, there at 1 o'clock in the morning filming it, then you know we know which which counts to follow.
Now, there's a couple of other stories that we need to talk about as well. Not least Rachel Reeves, which is going to come up. You know, she's under fire over the borrowing figures now, which are absolutely going through the roof. The rate of guilt now is way higher than it was under Liz Truss, and also she's plotting a sort of mansion tax, and people are suggesting that she might ruin the housing market. But also, just off to the side, let's have a look at the Sun front page, because Noel Gallagher is there. He did an interview yesterday on Talk Sport, in which he talks about how proud he was of his brother Liam. It looks as if their feud has finally been buried once and for all. So there's great hope out there for any of you who've had a long-running feud with any member of your family. The Gallaghers have finally sorted it out. Have a listen to this.
Just going back to the gigs you've done, there was that moment at the end of the first gig where, as it all finished, you and Liam were walking off and you gave each other a little hug. How emotional was that for you? Because it looked pretty emotional.
We're not those kind of guys, really. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of it's great just to be back with Bonehead and Liam, and you know, just be doing it again. I guess when it's all said and done, we'll sit and reflect on it. But it's great being back in the band with Liam. I forgot how funny he was.
And also his voice. Everyone has said, "Oh my God, his voice is unbelievable," and it is.
It's AI.
But do you know what's funny? I was thinking about this the other day when I was thinking, right, the next time I'm going to speak to you, I'm going to ask you this question, because everyone is saying Liam's voice is amazing, but your voice is pretty amazing still as well, right? No one's mentioning that.
Well, you know, that doesn't. I'm the songwriter. You know what I mean? I'm not really a singer, to be honest. But Liam's smashing it. He's. I'm proud of him. You know, he's kind of. Having been a song front in a band for 16 years, I know how difficult that is. You know what I mean? And I know, and I couldn't do the stadium thing like he does it. It's not in my nature. But I've got to say, man, I kind of look at it and I think, you know, good for you, mate. You know, he's been amazing.
Isn't that great?
Touching interview.
It's a happy story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so nice. And also, isn't it great when you see these incredible rock stars? And I've seen it many times with some of them. I remember having, it's going to sound a bit pompous, but I had a conversation with The Edge once, you know. And where somebody like Noel Gallagher goes, "I'm not really a singer." And you go, "Mate, you're in Oasis. You know, you've written songs and sung them to millions of people." But he goes, "I'm not really a singer." And if only politicians would follow that mantra. You know, Keir Starmer, "I'm not really a politician. I'm not really much. You know, I'm not really good at that."
He's lived up. I mean, it's lived up to all the hype, hasn't it? The concert's been
extraordinary. I mean, I was listening. I mean, I had my good friend Donald McLeod down here last week, and he was telling me that they did 3 concerts at Murrayfield in Edinburgh, and each night the take at the bar was £2 million. I mean, I'm not, you know, talk about a boost to the economy, though. You know, 2 million, so £6 million was the take at the ball. 3 nights at Murrayfield.
And
Brilliant for the economy.
I think they also.
It's one of our greatest exports as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think they tap into something which is sort of. It's not just about the band, but it's about sort of. We don't have rock and roll stars anymore. We don't, you know, the likes of Oasis, we just don't have...
Well, Noel said in another interview that, you know, they were the last sort of proper rock and roll band before the internet came along, and you couldn't live stream their music, you had to buy it. You literally had to buy the CD, or you had to buy the vinyl, you know, and now nobody does that anymore.
But nobody... There aren't many people. I'm struggling to think of a band, a rock and roll band, not a pop group, not a singer that you could think of people like Taylor Swift or Beatles or whatever, but an actual band that you can go and see that can sell out the largest stadiums in the country multiple times over. I don't think you can. I think people want to go back, not just to see Oasis, but they almost want to go back in time
to remember their lives in the 90s,
because they're a bit better. Yeah, we had a community where we had people. You know, you could go and see a band.
Didn't have any migrants.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't. Sorry. I mean, you know, people will go, "Oh, it's all like that." We didn't have any. The country was a different place.
Yeah, very different.
You didn't walk down the street and see blokes from Eritrea waving machetes at each other. You know, and that's what we have now. Anyway, listen, it's 6:52. Be back after this.
So where do we get started with this? You've got the right person on the show, because my job a couple of years ago was actually to scrutinise this thing called the leisure card, which is what you're actually talking about. And the leisure card has some great benefits for people, and it's good for people that are on low earnings, etc. But the council's administration decided to now offer this up to asylum seekers, and it goes a lot further than offering 40% off beach hut hires. It's also 40% off kayak lessons,
kayak lesson. What's that? So they can row back to France.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 5 minutes to 7. The time is flying. I mean, we're out looking at the visage out the window there. It's not looking particularly good, is it? It's not been a great week so far in terms of sunshine. Let's get a voice note from Sue, though.
Morning, Mike. Sue from Farnham here. Absolutely brilliant about Epping. Someone's actually listening. And now, I know I say it all the time, you put them in army tents in a field. Next stop, the ferry. Back to France. Bye.
Yeah, I think it's not difficult, is it? We'll be talking coming up in the next hour to Stephen Barrett, who is, of course, a barrister and writer, and we'll get his view on the legal situation. But as far as it looks at the moment, the hotels are done and dusted. They're going to have to all shut down and get rid of all the migrants. The question is, where does everybody else go? Let's talk, though, just before we hit the top of the hour, Theo, about the other big political story this morning, and that's all about Rachel Reeves. Page 2 of the Daily Mail has got a story, because this has been highlighted for the last couple of days. The cost of borrowing now in this country has reached ridiculous levels. You know, the 30-year UK gilt yield is 5.6% now under Rachel Reeves, which is higher than it was under Liz Truss, which when it reached 5.1%, which apparently caused not only a run on the pound, but the sort of collapso of the city and its confidence in the government. So how is it possible that this is worse than Liz Truss, and yet nobody's really talking about it?
Well, they should be talking about it, because this is money, this is taxpayers' money, which is now being used to pay the public debt.
Yeah.
Rachel Reeves put up taxes in the autumn, and by at the end of October, by December, 1 in every £4 of that money was just paying the debt interest.
It's been a disaster, hasn't it?
It's been an absolute disaster, and it's getting worse.
And she's borrowing more and more money.
And the reason it's getting worse, the reason these gilt yields are going up, is because the money men and money women and algorithms over in the City of London, in the Square Mile, and in other financial markets around the world, where people buy up debt, sovereign debt from countries, look at the UK and they think it's a basket case. They think, actually, I need to charge a higher interest rate because I'm not sure I'm going to get my money back.
Yeah.
That's why so now we're at a stage where it's at a 27-year high, and that's costing us money. And it means that Rachel Reeves...
we're now borrowing something like 20 to 25 billion a month.
Yeah.
Right, just to keep going. And the black hole now is apparently 50 billion.
Yeah, and that's going to need to be filled. And that's going to need to be filled. And that's why Rachel Reeves, and we've got reports in the Times, we have reports in the Guardian that she wants to put up taxes on
property, basically, like
but
a
high value property.
Yeah.
It's a wealth tax.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not going to raise any money, because all people will do is they'll just stay in their home. They just won't sell their house.
Right. And so people in the Sun, there's a story in the Sun saying she's basically going to kill off the housing market.
Yeah, of course she is.
That's a nightmare, isn't it? I mean, is there anything they can do right this lot?
If you bought a house for £5, and this is on primary residence, so there's always been capital gains on second homes.
Yeah.
But if you had a house that you bought 30 years ago, let's say a house in London you bought for 30 years ago for 200,000, and it's now worth 800,000, that would be what, a tax 24% on 600,000 that you would have to pay. You just stay put.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't move.
Well, Sarah Vine's in the Mail today saying, I hate having to rent my property, but now Rachel Reeves is coming for our homes, and why would I ever bother buying one?
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say that. They'll go, well, I don't want to hand, hundreds of thousands of pounds to anyone, or even like £50,000 to the government. Why would you bother?
And then you've got the person who's paying stamp duty who's trying to buy your home.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't, it would just absolutely kill the whole thing.
And it just shows you, doesn't it, that their fiscal policy is completely, unrealistic, because every single tax that they've tried to put on actually has backfired. They haven't collected any more money from the VAT on private schools. They haven't collected any more money from the farmers. They haven't collected any more money from the non-doms. They've collected no more money really from a lot of businesses and national insurance.
And they're just not taking people on. Businesses just not taking people on.
Sacking people, It's unbelievable. Theo, listen, great to see you. It's a bit one-track-minded this morning because the Migrant Hotel story is so massive. We will be covering other stories as well throughout the course of the show. But this, I tell you, is a massive setback for this government. Coming up, we're going to talk to Sam Armstrong, political consultant for the Free Speech Union. Back after the news.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's come up for 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when Kevin O'Sullivan will be here. He's in for Julia Hartley-Brewer this week. Breaking news for you. Inflation figures have just come out. And guess what? It's risen. It's a 3.8% in July. Well done. Another triumph for Rachel Reeves. This on top of the news that basically the borrowing has skyrocketed and now the level of the 30-year UK gilt yield is 5.6%. Under Liz Truss, when it all went horribly wrong, it was 5.1%. And yet nobody's really talking about it. Rachel Reeves has made a complete rick of the economy. Inflation is now up to 3.8%. Anybody with a brain will tell you that that's actually only the beginning, because every time you go to the shops, everything has gone up. Not by 3.8%, not by 4.8%, but more like by minimum 10%. Right, we're going to talk to Sam Armstrong, political consultant with the Free Speech Union, and Stephen Barrett, a barrister and writer, because the big story this morning, if you only just woken up and you've been living under a stone for the last 24 hours, is that the Migrant hotel gig is up, basically. A ruling yesterday by the High Court says that the government can no longer house migrants in the Bell Hotel in Epping. And what that means is that they won't be able to house them in any other migrant hotel up and down the country. The reason is because it's now been ruled unlawful, because they've changed the policies and they've changed the usage of the hotel, so much so that the Bell Hotel is no longer a hotel. Therefore, under the new rules of engagement, it turns out that the migrants will have to be kicked out within the next 14 days. There's some confusion as to whether or not the Labour government might try and appeal, but they did make a representation late yesterday. Before the court actually made a decision, the Home Office made an application to have the whole thing thrown out, and they lost. Why? Because the planning permission problem is the problem. Because if you have a hotel, which basically involves you offering rooms to people for an amount of money, they can walk in, or they can book online, or they can phone you up and book a hotel room, that's a hotel. If what you do is you basically house people who are paid for on a block booking by the government, that's not a hotel anymore. That is a home of multiple occupancy. And therefore, every single migrant hotel in the land is now subject to the same problem. And you cannot run it as a hotel. Therefore, you don't have planning permission to have those people there. Therefore, you have to be shut down. It's pretty much as simple as that. And that is a precedent that will now be set for the rest of the entire nation. 0344 499 1000. We've got lots of amazing messages coming in, and we will try and get to all of them. Please do keep sending them. 87222 on the text. You can leave us a voice note on 0344 499 1000. A couple of other stories knocking around about Ukraine as well, but that's far less interesting than what we're going to tell you about. And Rachel Reeves plotting a mansion tax for the wealthy, but it will hit all ordinary people as well. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Yeah, Rachel Reeves is on course to ruin the housing market. Brilliant. Fantastic. Also, there's been a Labour MP spotted using ChatGPT to actually answer questions from constituents, which is a bit embarrassing. Morning, Mike. Colin here from Somerset. Rachel has a £50 billion black hole. With her illustrious CV, she must be able to calculate £3 billion over 5 years to Ukraine and £35 billion to give Chagos away. Adds up to £53 billion. Great show. Always listen to you and your colleagues. Keep up the great work. Darren in Eltham. Colin's an economist, is he? Did you say? Oh, she's an economist. Oh, she's an economist. Oh, yeah, we know that. Yeah, let's have a look. Is she an economist or not?
Well, I'm an economist. I studied economics. I got a master's in economics from the London School of Economics, and I worked as an economist at the Bank of England.
No, you didn't. But thanks anyway. You can't tire of that, can you? That clever Starmer. What effing planet is this Muppet on, says Dave in Chester. We in the UK, blah, blah. It was F all to do with him. This is all down to Trump. The president has worked tirelessly to get this far, and Calamity Keir thinks he was part of that. I know. I don't even know why he went to Washington. One from Lenny in Elephant and Castle. Great show. Starmer had one agenda for going to America, and that was to gravitate always towards anything that fills his day and keeps him out of Britain's problems. Yeah, and of course, while he was away, he had this momentous decision made about Epping and about the whole migrant hotel problem. Let's talk to Sam Armstrong, political consultant with the Free Speech Union. Sam, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
This could not be a more disastrous story for the government, could it?
No, because it proves the following, which is that this government has been a participant in not one, but two crimes. It's aided and abetted the mass arrival of people breaking into this country, breaking our migration laws, and ignored them on the back of its own warped sense of human rights. And then it's also just trampled across the planning system. And look, it's not just funny and humiliating and a good result and all the rest of it. It does kick in the teeth, Mike, because listeners to the show will have put in planning application to convert their garage into I don't know, an office or a place for Granny to come and sleep, and the council will have bashed it back, and they will have been told, no, you can't do it, and that was the end of it. But the British government, Keir Starmer, believes that he is exempt, that he is above the law, that he can just go put whatever, wherever, whenever he wants, and the views of the residents be damned. And it isn't a law that we would accept for anyone else, and I don't know why this government thought it was exempt in the first place. Right. So it's a huge kick in the teeth, and as you said at the outset, Mike, it potentially upends the entire system for housing these people.
Well, this is the problem, because every single place now in Britain, and I know it's already started in Broxburn, there will be other, I'm sure, certainly reform councils who will challenge the existence of migrant hotels, and they will use this as a precedent, won't they? They'll say, look, the High Court's already decided that the change of usage for this particular hotel means that it's no longer a hotel, so you can make that applicable to every single migrant hotel in Britain.
Yeah, so here's the good news. We're not going to have migrants put up in hotels in nearly the same numbers as we did before yesterday. Here's the bad news. These people aren't going anywhere. These people are still going to come. They're going to break into this country every day because they know when they arrive, they're still going to get put up. They're still going to get their meals sorted. They're still going to get a little credit card of spending money. They're going to get the works. And this is what they're going to do. They're going to push them into houses of multiple occupancy. By houses of multiple occupancy, read terraced houses in British towns and cities. Read places where ordinary British families used to live. Think of the streets where you saw the coronation parties in the 1950s or the VE Day parties. Those are the streets, those houses that used to be functional working communities are going to be emptied out. Migrants are going to be moved in 4, 5, 6 to a house, and British people are going to get pushed out. They're not going to be able to afford homes for themselves, for their kids, and as I say, communities will die right up and down across the country. And all of this, it does seem that, like, we so often try and treat the symptoms of the problem, which is massive numbers of fighting age men breaking into this country, rather than doing anything to deal with the problem, which is we need to get these people out.
But do you not think that that's politically now really difficult for Labour, because they're under scrutiny now, and this is what I was saying in the last hour, that, you know, they would have done that in the past. They are doing it as we speak. You know, we spoke yesterday to a Portsmouth councillor who said that they've now identified 22 different dwellings where they've been changed into HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy. There's going to be between 5 and 8 men moved into each one. But they try to do it sort of under cover of darkness without anybody knowing. And I think now that they're being watched, and because people are going to be paying very, very close attention to what is going on up and down the country, I think they will make a massive mistake politically if that's what they do, if they move these migrants into those communities.
Well, he hasn't got a choice. He's addicted. He's addicted to the mass inflow of people. Rachel Reeves is using them to balance the books. And
yeah,
he's not...
They're not, though. Because all they do is create another drain on the economy, surely.
Each one of them costs the taxpayer in the long run £500,000.
Yeah.
She used them because the OBR have got these broken figures that say that immigration is good for the economy. Really, look around. But I think you're right that they're going to get more and more secretive. And by the way, Mike, never forget, this is big business for companies. Yes. There are British companies that are getting wealthy beyond your wildest dreams off the back of finding these people housing, ripping off the taxpayer and doing whatever to trample over the wishes of local people. That's not going to stop. So the likes of these big companies, many of which, by the way, very surprisingly, loads of former civil servants, loads of former politicians sit on the fancy boards of, are going to do whatever it takes to sneak this through. And look, there are many thousands of these HMOs already licensed in this country. And I think what you're going to see is, if you're an HMO landlord, good news was yesterday's judgment, because there's about to be a lovely young fellow coming up from a big private services company that's going to say, how would you like us to double the rent of what your tenants have been paying for the last 20 years? Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
OK, Sam, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Political consultant with the Free Speech Union. We're going to speak to Stephen Barrett in a moment, barrister and writer. First, a voice note from Lee.
Morning, Mike. Lee from Chelmsford. Well, hopefully they'll get thrown out of this hotel. I know all the others up and down the country will follow suit, but all they're going to do is disperse them into the country and grant them all asylum. If he just turned round and said, we're going to detain them and we're going to deport every single one of them, everybody up and down the country would be on his side about it. But he won't, and he'll never do it, and it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, Lee speaks for an awful lot of people, many people feeling like, what's going to happen next? And that's the question I'm going to ask Stephen Barrett. Stephen, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Legally speaking, can the government appeal this particular decision? I guess it's the first question.
Well, legally speaking, it's an interim decision and there will be a full hearing later on. What most of us have done is, just to inform your listeners and viewers properly, Great Yarmouth Council did this a few years ago. So it's not quite as new as it appears, but there's going to be a full hearing. Yeah. But the simple fact is, Mike, a building full of permanently housed migrants is not a hotel. Right. And so, I mean, of course, the judge will be welcome to come to whatever conclusion at the full hearing the judge comes to, and I'm not trying to prejudice that judge in any way. I don't think I could prejudice a judge of the High Court.
You can't prejudice a judge, can you?
No. No, so I'm never really worried about this sort of. I mean, Keir Starmer would probably pretend that we could in order to shut us up.
He's an idiot, though. You know.
Yes, he is an idiot. But there is no way that we could seriously prejudice a judge of the High Court. These people, these men and women are tough as they come.
Yeah.
They are tough as nails. I hope everybody remembers Mr. Justice Goose, who dealt with Axel Rudiker-Barner in a very firm way.
Yeah.
And, you know, our judges are very impressive human beings. So, no, there's no way we're going to prejudice them.
Right.
So everybody's expecting that the judge will simply say, a building full of permanently housed migrants who are there for years, which is not open for business, which you and I cannot book.
Right.
You know, and we've seen this. Weddings are being cancelled, and you know, all sorts of.
I got told yesterday that there's a hotel in my neighbourhood in London which is about to be taken over by migrants. So they're still actually, you know, booking these places.
Yes, and it was always a sort of ridiculous knee-jerk, and it's blown up in their face because they've allowed a bloated legal planning regime to exist. I mean, never forget that, Mike. I mean, they may well be kicking themselves, but they spent years building up a bloated legal system, and this is the net result, is that you can't actually do anything.
Yeah.
As long as people notice and they take action. I mean, you've highlighted that many councils have already said, we're going to do this too. There will be bad councils that won't take any action,
right.
And I'm going to set up a fund so that people who live in those areas can take action themselves.
Well, funny you say that, because I mentioned this to Jeremy Kyle yesterday. I was on his show late yesterday afternoon, because I said I'm sure there will be a way for individuals who are interested parties, shall we say, whether they be local neighbours or just, you know, interested parties in that particular neck of the woods, who will be able to bring a case against the Home Office.
Yes, and I think that's something that I want to empower.
Yeah.
Because I want people to stop feeling powerless.
Good for you.
This was always an obviously stupid thing to do.
Yes.
It was hidden under that great con trick of our age. The minute that they can describe anything as racism, we all shut up, get scared, and scuttle away.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not racism.
No.
It's wanting to feel safe.
Yes.
Which, by the way, Mike, is a universal human need, and it doesn't matter what race they say you are. You will want to feel safe if you are a human being.
Right.
That's what we all do.
Exactly.
All humans want our children to feel safe. We want to feel safe ourselves, and men in particular do want to protect women and girls. These things are not rocket science. They're not magic. That's what we do as a species.
Yes. And then on to my next point then, which is the one that people are raising with me this morning. What happens if the government tries to then move these people out of the hotels, which they said they were going to do anyway, into, you know, what we are loosely calling HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy? Because I think up until now, they've done it stealthily. You know, they've done it without really telling anyone. They've done it without really mentioning it. A lot of councils haven't even been aware. I think under this kind of scrutiny, they will struggle to do that. And I'm hoping that that's the case, because what I want them to do is start bloody well deporting them.
Yes, well, stop thinking that the government is in any way competent.
Yeah.
And stop being worried about the government. The government is probably right now having lying on the ground and crying.
Yeah.
Because how on earth do you move? You know, a hotel houses 400 people. How on earth do you have that many HMOs nearby to put them in?
Yeah.
And then once people realise that Epping is not a one-off. Once people realise that this is replicable, this is going to be every migrant hotel.
Yes.
The government suddenly. I mean, Keir Starmer. I'm afraid, Mike. I mean, I hate saying it, but I also hate the fact that it's true that our Prime Minister lies.
Yeah.
So he did go on telly and say that there are loads of spare houses.
Yeah.
There aren't. So he's going to run headfirst into his own lie.
Yeah.
Because there simply aren't enough houses to turn into HMOs. Where are these HMOs?
Let's not forget, he also said 12 days ago that anyone who enters this country illegally will be detained and returned, right? Now, since he said that, 2,500 people have come here and not one of them has been returned. We know that they've detained maybe 2 or 3 of them, but it's basically another lie.
Yes. It is, Mike, and I concluded, I think a few years ago, because my memory's getting worse, but I'm pretty sure it was a couple of years ago, that this is a national emergency. and it counts as a national emergency. And if you sit there in your house, if your kitchen is on fire and you simply move to the sitting room and ignore the fire, you ignore the national emergency, it doesn't get better on its own. And I really think that this has got now completely out of control, and the government is going to have to realise it's going to have to do something big.
Yes.
And
Something
Labour,
drastic.
well, they're going to need to deport these people.
Yeah.
Because we don't have enough resources. And again, just to be absolutely clear to our government as it goes through this sort of crisis that it's going through now, that's not racism. Okay, we are multi-ethnic now. We are a beautiful and amazing multi-ethnic country. We just don't have infinite resources.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
No, we're full up. It's as simple as that. It's got nothing to do, as you say, with the colour of people's skin. It's got nothing to do with which countries they're coming from. It's the fact that they're coming at all, and the fact that they're coming in such huge numbers that we can't handle it. It's as simple as that. You know, It doesn't matter if they're coming from Ireland or France or, Eritrea. At the end of the day, we just haven't got any room anymore, so just don't bloody well come, thank you.
Yes, and the government's now walked into, or crashed headfirst into, a crisis really of its own making. Because, as I said, that Great Yarmouth case was, let me just get the date, Mike, I don't want to be wrong, 11th of May 2023.
Right.
So they have known for a while that this is a very serious risk.
And so have they been able to maintain a sort of migrant hotel free zone then?
They won a case exactly like Epping. And I don't want to take away from Epping's win. I think Epping District, I think it's Epping Forest District Council, and they'll forgive me if I've got that wrong, and it's definitely Holly Whitbread. I don't want to take away from their achievements. They are outstanding local councillors who have achieved for their area. And I think that's rather telling too, Mike, because I do have a bit of an obsession with the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And I bet that Keir Starmer, in all his finery, and, with David Lammy spending all that money on private jets, they think of themselves as absolute gods and kings.
Yeah.
And look at that, a little district council that they probably sneer about. If we're perfectly honest, Mike, we meet these people, they almost certainly sneer about a little district council and the type of people who stand as district councillors, who love their local area. They have beaten them.
Yes.
They have. The hobbits have beaten Sauron yet again.
As have the people. But listen, it's a fine analogy. Thank you very much indeed. Stephen Barrett, barrister and writer. No question that Keir Starmer spent an awful lot of time looking for his ring. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Let's get a voice out from Kitty.
Morning, Mike and team. It's Kitty in Kent here. So yesterday is the new VE Day, Victory in Epping. And yes, the government are going to try and undo all sorts of things and do terrible things, but now they're exposed. And it is thanks to you and talkTV and a few journalists and media types who see the world as it is and are willing to talk about it, and not the world as they want it to be or think it should be in their ideology. I'm going to put my union flag back up the flagpole today, and it'll have the added bonus of annoying my neighbours opposite who love the EU flag. Have a wonderful day. Well done. Keep up the good work. It is bringing hope to millions.
Kitty, listen, brilliant. It's great, isn't it? It's a great day. It is a great day because a victory for common sense, which apart from anything else was well needed. But it's a victory for the good people of Epping who went out there day after day after day and demonstrated peacefully, quietly, with dignity, despite the fact that some members of the media are describing, days of violence and far-right thuggery and all the rest of it. Absolutely, and that's a cobbler's codswallop, right? It was peaceful, it was brilliant, it was wonderful. We spoke to many of you, and we'll like to hear from more of you actually today at Epping out there because of this great victory, which I think is going to resonate across the land. And I think it's going to make very, very much more difficult the Labour government's plans to house these people in private homes. I think it's going to be very, very hard for them to do that. I don't make any apology for it. Coming up, James Wilde, MP, Shadow Exchequer Secretary to Treasury, is going to be joining us, plus Kira Rudik, who's a Ukrainian MP. It's all coming next.
those on the front lines feel that they have to avenge their fallen brothers. There's no scenario where they see themselves giving up areas like the Donbass. But then everyday Ukrainians feel that they want this war to be over. They've fought too hard for too long, lost properties, lost loved ones, and they may be open. I spoke to some people in the streets the other day who said maybe there could be some sort of national referendum. But either way, they all agreed it needed to be a decision made among Ukraine.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 7:27. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through. It is Wednesday, the 20th of August, of course, and if you're out there and about having a holiday, do enjoy it, because things are going up in price, I'm afraid. Breaking news this morning, inflation has risen to 3.8% for July. That's the highest since January 2024, a 19-month high. Rachel Reeves, of course, in the papers this morning because she wants to bring a mansion tax in. Supposedly she's decided to do away with your exemption from capital gains tax if you sell your first home, and it turns out that she's drawing up plans to hit the owners of high value properties with capital gains tax when they sell their homes, as she attempts to fill what's now being called a £40 billion black hole in the public finances. Well, I thought it was a £50 billion black hole. Also, borrowing costs have hit the highest level in 27 years. According to a piece in the Mail today, the peak under Liz Truss for the 30-year UK gilt yield, which is the way that you use to borrow money, basically, 5.1% under Liz Truss. Under Rachel Reeves, it's now gone up to 5.6%. Let's talk now to James Wilde, MP, Shadow Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury. James, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
I mean, it's all bad news, really. There's nothing on the horizon that looks any good. There's only bad news for Rachel Reeves generally, isn't there?
That's true, and it's because of the decisions they took in the autumn budget last year to massively increase taxes on jobs. We warned at the time that would feed through to higher prices because companies can't simply absorb that. And what have we seen today? Inflation up yet again to 3.8%. Bank of England are expecting it to go to 4% in September. That's further pain for hard-working families who are having to pay more for their weekly shop and are seeing less money in their pocket and more demands from the cost of living. The Chancellor's now looking, as you say, a family home tax is apparently on the agenda. We challenged them to rule out doing this, and are now floating this idea. This would be crossing a line, taxing the family home for the first time in this way, and we think they should rule that out.
Yeah, I mean, is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Because there doesn't seem to be much that she can do to change the situation we're in. I mean, the price of gilt has risen ridiculously high. You know, and under Liz Truss, we were told, you know, this is a nightmare for the economy, a nightmare for the markets. The markets have got no confidence in them. Why suddenly are the markets not behaving the same way, given that the gilts are now 5.6% on the yield?
Well, I think because of the mismanagement by Rachel Reeves, there isn't confidence in the market, so this government has actually got a plan that is working. What we're seeing is they took measures which reduce growth in the economy, which are now driving up higher prices, and they've undergone a massive borrowing splurge. And the danger is that the more they borrow, the higher the costs are, the higher the cost of servicing that debt. We're now going to be spending £130 billion a year by the end of this Parliament just on paying off the interest. That would be the third biggest government department if it was a government department on its own. That's money that's being wasted. We need to live within our means. We need to be controlling spending. The Chancellor backed away from even modest reductions on the welfare budget because her backbenchers wouldn't stand for it. Unless they're prepared to act, then this doom loop that we're in is only going to continue, I'm afraid.
And what does the inflation figure mean to you today? It's risen to 3.8%. I mean, a lot of people say to me, when they talk about the actual price of goods, the things that they buy every single day, every single week, the weekly shop is going up by a lot more than that.
Well, yeah, indeed. We've seen energy prices, water bills are going up significantly, broadband and mobile costs. We're seeing all those going up. Air passenger duty. You talked about people going on holiday. They're being whacked by Rachel Reeves just for getting away with their family. Obviously, I'd encourage people to come to sunny Norfolk, but people get away as well. So wherever you look, the costs are going up. And unfortunately, the government's decisions hitting businesses with higher costs, they can't simply absorb that. We've seen job losses, 10 months of unemployment going up in a row. Now we're seeing higher prices. Companies are really feeling the squeeze here, and we need a government that's thinking about business and that understands business. Unfortunately, the government doesn't show signs of that yet. We live in hope that they will listen and start acting and doing the things that businesses are calling on them to do.
Yeah. And can I ask you about this Epping decision, which was made late yesterday? It looks like now maybe every single migrant hotel in the UK could be now ruled to be illegal, effectively, as a hotel and no longer a going concern because it isn't a hotel anymore. What is this going to mean for what they do next?
Well, I welcome this decision that came after action by a Conservative council on behalf of its local community, reflecting the concerns of people there. They're perfectly legitimate concerns. And the government are now in a bind. They came into office saying they were going to get rid of these illegal migrant hotels. Actually, the number of people in them has increased. And this goes back to the decision they took on day one. If you scrap the deterrent so that people don't think that they'll be removed when they arrive, then what's going to happen? More people are going to come, and we've seen that 50,000 people in the last year alone. So the government need to reintroduce the deterrent scheme that we had in place. Otherwise, the situation is just going to get worse. But it's quite right for councils, Conservative councils, to stand up for their local community in the way that they have here.
Yeah. James, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. James Wild MP, Shadow Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury. Michael from South East London says, if they get removed from the hotel, does that mean the taxpayers have still got to pay for the hotel? Has there been promised for 5 years? Keep up the good work. I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine that the government could, if they wanted to, just pull the plug on it altogether and say, well, I'm sorry, the legal situation is such that we now can no longer pay you to house migrants because you're not housing them anymore. So surely that would be what they would do. I'll be surprised if Starmer mentions the High Court ruling in his first tweet of the day, says Neil in Derbyshire. Yeah, well, it's coming up to 7:30. Around about 8 o'clock is when the first lie of the day usually comes out of Downing Street, so we'll keep an eye on that one. Starmer's Oval Office cropped photo. Interesting that the White House staff placed him on the far left of the photo. Ha-ha, says Bill in Cheshire. Captain Coldsaw, more like Captain Coleslaw. He's 80% cabbage, says Mark in Notts. Let's get a voice note from Dan.
I think the hotel stuff and the money that they're spending on that from the government is a disgrace, but there are other things happening that we don't know about. I feel like we have hidden deportations that are costing the nation thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds every day. There is private security companies that are taking deported immigrants back to their original country. They're going every single day with numerous security with them, costing thousands, and they're even flying some charter flights out, which is costing hundreds of thousands. These things are hidden and not shared.
Yeah. They're going to hide as much as they possibly can hide, but we're going to keep on them so that we can stop the stuff that's hidden and make it clear that we need to know what they're doing with our money and that we need to know what they're doing with the migrants. So we need to know if they're chartering planes and deporting people. And I'm sure if they were deporting people en masse, they'd be telling us, by the way, because they'd think that was a good thing. Richard Tice coming up in a little while from Reform. Jamie Jenkins with some important statistics coming up as well. First, though, have a look at this. This has been lovingly put together by a fantastic team of people here at Talk and Morning Glory. This is a White House trip of the lifetime for Keir Starmer. Have a look at this.
Particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees and some sort of progress on trilateral security guarantees. Coalition of willing working together on security guarantees. Some sort of Article 5 style guarantees fits with what we've been doing with the Coalition of the Willing when it comes to security guarantees, with now the Coalition of the Willing security guarantees now working with the US at pace to work up those security guarantees. A trilateral meeting seems the sensible next step. Trilateral meeting followed by a trilateral. The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact. It's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom. 3+ years. Hugely impacted. It's also impacted Europe. It's impacted every single
family and community in the United Kingdom.
On Europe and on the United Kingdom, there's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. This is such an important issue. I think this is such an important meeting, a very important day.
That's really important for security in Ukraine, for security in Europe and for security in the United Kingdom. A bilateral meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky. A bilateral agreement between President Putin and President Zelensky. That was after a phone call between President Trump and President Putin. We're able to make real progress.
We can make real progress with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress.
Christ. This is basically a compilation of the things that he said on the way there, while he was there, and after he finished. It's all the same. It's the same, you know, bilateral, trilateral, security, great progress, you know, impact. It's just, you know, nonsense. None of it makes any sense, right? Captain Cold Sore. That's what he is, right? Front page of the Mirror today says Brit troops to keep the peace. So he's apparently, right, because I asked this question yesterday without an answer from Downing Street, you know, are you actually planning to send British troops to Ukraine to keep the peace? And he says yes, Britain will send troops to Ukraine to keep the peace, according to the Mirror, if the deal with Russia is struck, says Donald Trump. But he ruled out using US military and said Europe and the UK will put boots on the ground. Well, sorry. Has anybody asked the British people if we'd like to have that going on? If you'd like to send your sons and daughters out to Ukraine to keep the peace, to put your boots on the ground to protect the Ukrainians? I don't think so. I don't think you'd get a yes for that one. 7:36.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:38. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Lindsay in West Sussex says, thank you, Mike, for giving us a good laugh while we feel so depressed about this country. Fab news about Epping. Keep up the great work. Absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Maddie.
Morning, Mike. This is Maddie calling in from Essex. I just wanted to congratulate the people of Epping, especially the women and the mums, you know, who marched peacefully, showed their determination, their mettle and their resolve. And I really think, being one of those mums from Essex, that the government didn't really know who they were dealing with, and the so-called women sitting in government at the moment can definitely take a leaf out of their books. See you later. Bye.
Absolutely right. Andrew Neil has just tweeted this. It took the last benighted Tory government 14 years to slump to a net approval rating of -56, which it richly deserved. But Starmer and Labour have managed to plummet to the same depths in just 14 months. A breathtaking achievement. Congratulations. Well done. We like a statistic, don't we? Let's talk to the man who knows a thing or two about that. Jamie Jenkins, independent statistician, of course, on the news, Jamie. Welcome to the show. Very good morning to you. Inflation risen to 3.8% in July. As you say, more bad news for the economy.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. Some good news on the Bell Hotel, but bad news another week for the economy. So, yeah, inflation's been creeping up now for a few months. And what's driving this, Mike, is it's pretty much food inflation. It's continuing to go up. So that's it, 4.9%. And this is not the direction that we want things to be going. And what we've seen, Mike, if you know, they were talking last week, Rachel Reeves, about the economy and comparing ourselves to some of the other nations. So let's do that with the inflation figures. France, 0.9%. Germany, 1.8%. So two of the big powerhouses of Europe, they're below that Bank of England target. So the government needs to look now, what are they doing wrong because inflation's so high?
Yeah, because they keep also lying to us as well, don't they? It's like, even as recently as last week, saying that we're the fastest growing economy in the G7. Not true. You know, it was true in the first quarter, but it's not true now.
No, and the economy's in a hell of a state, Mike. And I've been looking at the figures that came out last week. There's so many numbers that come up from the ONS every week that difficult to get through them all. So you look at the wage figures, which kind of feeds a little bit into inflation, because obviously if wages are going up above inflation, that can push inflation up again. You get into this wage cost spiral.
Yeah.
And if you look at the latest public sector pay, Mike, which is obviously important to the story you've been talking about government debt as well this morning, public sector pay now is outstripping private sector pay in the economy. So if we look at the latest figures, public sector pays up about 5.3%. The private sector pays up 4.7%. So that's year on year. So what does that mean? So this is a remarkable number. This is the whole public sector pay bill roughly now, Mike, about £288 billion. You know, huge. £288 billion on the public sector pay bill. So that 5.3% increase would be about £15.3 billion. But the important number to consider is that difference between what public sector pay is going up and private sector pay, which is about 0.6%. For that in context, £1.7 billion. So the government has to borrow more money, because obviously we're not getting enough tax in anyway to pay for that.
Right.
And that 1.7 billion, Mike, the house of cards is falling. That's more than what they were hoping to get back by getting rid of the winter fuel allowance. It's 3 times more than what they'd expect to get annually from the farming tax.
Right.
So the government's decisions, Mike, are causing more of this debt that's costing the government more debt. The economy is out of control, and Rachel Reeves surely just should resign.
Well, you would think so. I mean, any normal person would, because that's the other lie that they come out with all the time, that, you know, they pushed up pay for people, that people are being paid more money. Well, only if they're in the public sector, right?
Yeah, and private sector pay, Mike, has been coming down, say, over the last 6 months in terms of the annual rise. So obviously wages still go up, but the amount they go up is coming down. And that's because inflation has been coming down. So the bad news on inflation could cost companies more money, because you'd have union bosses going in asking for more money because inflation's creeping up, and that's where the economy starts to out of control. So the private sector are responding to the falls we had seen in inflation from those peaks of around 10%. But the public sector not, because Labour came in, they caved in, they gave these pay deals, and even, you know, the resident doctors aren't happy with what they got. You can't get public sector pay under control. Remember, Mike, who pays for the public sector pay bill? It's the private sector tax.
Yeah,
so if you don't get the money in, that's not going to work.
But that is the problem, isn't it? We've got more and more people who are not contributing to the economy. We know now that there's millions of people who are just basically economically inactive, and fewer people like us actually paying for it.
Yeah, and the figures on jobs last week, exactly what you said there, Mike. So we've seen 157,000 fall in payroll jobs. So, you know, those are people who are paying tax into the system in the last kind of year since Labour came in. But break that down, public-private sector. We've seen a kind of over 70,000 increase in health jobs, public sector, over 29,000 in education, public sector, an increase in public administration, public sector. Look at the private sector, hospitality's down over 100,000, retail's down close to 70,000. So private sector's falling, public sector's going up, which costs more and more money, costs more and more borrowing. And this is just a debt that we cannot afford, Mike. And you've just been talking, I think, with Theo this morning about the £20 billion we're borrowing a month. You know, we cannot sustain this into the long term.
No, it's absolutely shocking. Good to talk to you, Jamie. Thanks very much indeed. Jamie Jenkins, independent statistician there, telling us about inflation, which has risen to 3.8% in July. A much higher level, by the way, than other countries in Europe. You know, we don't hear that boast from the government, do we? All we hear from them is that, you know, we're the fastest growing nation economy in the G7. Not anymore. And inflation much higher than it is in other G7 countries. And of course the problem is the borrowing levels are out of control, now hitting the highest levels in 27 years. And if you thought Liz Truss was bad, 5.1% was the 30-year UK gilt yield under Liz Truss's tutelage. Now it's 5.6% under Rachel Reeves, who now wants to bring in yet another tax on your housing, on your property. Absolutely unbelievable. Richard Tice coming next.
people who are putting up these Palestinian flags and other flags representing the Muslim communities, which are very close to being in the majority in some of these areas. This is a serious dispute and a break in the civic structure of our country. And it inevitably is going to lead to more protests and maybe increasingly angry and even violent protests.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:47 with you here until 10 o'clock when Kevin O'Sullivan will join us. Morning, Mike. Just listen to Sky News in your break. The newsreader mentioning the Epping Hotel news said after weeks of violent protest, etc., these bozos are as bad as the BBC with their ridiculous bias to Stephen Beckenham. Yeah, well, do yourself a favour. Don't bother. Just don't do it. This is going to annoy you. Noel and Liam, I'd make up with my estranged for £1 billion, says Ginny. Yeah, I suppose a lot of people would. What would it take for you to get back with your ex? Here's a tour that's going to make you £1 billion. OK, then. I'll get back into bed with you. Maybe. Let's get a voice note from Brian.
Morning, Mike. Brian from Southend. Great listen as usual this morning. Right, on the hotel things, my take, it's great the High Court has done it, and it's highlighted a problem, and many councils will probably go down that route to shut the hotels. As for where all these immigrants, illegals are going to go, people are saying, oh, they're going to go in houses and all in councils and all that. Well, councillors are like MPs. They're not very important unless they're in power, and they want to keep their power. And I think that many councils are going to start looking at this and saying, we're not having it here because the people don't want it and I want to stay in my position.
Yes, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think there's going to be a bit of a standoff between what the government wants to do and what we will want them not to do, and how we will keep an eye on them. And I think they're going to be really struggling now because they're going to have scrutiny on them, which means they can't do what they want. They can't just suddenly move a load of migrants out of the hotel under cover of darkness and put them into, houses and flats in different parts of the country. They won't be able to do that. Morning, Mike, says Liam Walsall. Great news for Epping. Watching Starmer in the White House meeting Georgia Maloney. It looks like she's thinking of what to have for lunch instead of listening to him drone on. Well, she was playing with her hair at one point when he was talking. It was pretty embarrassing. Ray Starmer and that compilation you guys put together, says Mark in Suffolk. What an embarrassment. God help us from this awful government. Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk to Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Richard, very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Mike. And amongst all the doom and gloom, I can give you some good news,
Please,
Mike.
do.
Exclusively, I can break on your show this morning that West Northants Council, a reform council, yesterday evening overcame the eco-zealots and reaffirmed a previous decision to scrap net stupid zero targets that had previously been adopted by that council. So they are gone from West Northants Council following what we've done in County Durham. This is good news to celebrate amongst all the madness that's going on.
Absolutely. Have you told Ed Miliband yet? Have you broken it to him?
Oh, we look forward to the press release going out. I'm sure he'll be thrilled.
Oh yeah, I mean you're probably trying to find some way of trying to punish you, but this is a piece of good news. But let's talk about the next step as well in possibly some of the reform controlled councils who will follow on from the Epping decision, because it seems to me I've called it epic in Epping. It seems to me that every migrant hotel now is potentially an illegal dwelling, because they cannot call themselves hotels, and so the precedent that's been set here by the High Court means that every other place where there is a migrant hotel, that can potentially be challenged and the migrants can be kicked out.
Absolutely, and reform councils had already been looking at legal avenues, particularly with regard to incorrect use of HMOs based on planning laws, and we will be doing the same with regard to migrant hotels where we have them. And you're absolutely right. It is a legal precedent. It's a temporary junction. The judge has ruled that there has been a material change of use of the building, of the property, in conflict with its planning status, and that is very significant. So yes, Reform UK councils will push on hard now, and I would expect other councils to do the same, obviously, except the Lib Dems and the Greens and that lot. Maybe they can take all the migrants from these councils that don't want them.
Absolutely right. And what's your view on what happens next? Because a lot of people are worried, talking to me this morning, that this is, on the face of it, great news, but we've got to make sure that these migrants are not now somehow transferred into HMOs and put into the community living in private residences, when in fact what should happen is they should all get deported.
Well, they should all be processed immediately and be deported. And those 138 odd in the Epping Hotel, for example, they've got until September the 12th, so they've got 3 weeks. Process them rapidly, reject them all because they've come here illegally, and deport them. And if there's a crossover, then yes, people need to be housed in former military camps. What's wrong with some good UN-type tents? And let's deport them. Germany's deporting people to the likes of Afghanistan. We should be doing the same. And I think that is the mood of the country. I think there's been a significant shift. There is a degree of rage and fury up and down the country. And we have to, I think it's incumbent on the government to recognise that. And they've got to get on with it, because people have just absolutely had enough. Now, as I just touched on, if those who protest saying refugees are welcome, the Socialist Workers' Party, the Antifa lot, the Greens, the Lib Dems, all the lovey-dovey's, well, in their councils, maybe they want to take them. Let's see if they're putting their hand up and saying, please come here. And let's see if they get re-elected at the next time there are council elections in their area. I suspect the answer is, oh, I'm sorry, we haven't got any room. What a load of twaddle. The hypocrisy from these people is truly revolting.
It really is. And I think what's interesting as well is we talked about this yesterday on Jeremy Carl's show, you know, the uprising of the good people of Epping, you know, the mothers, the children, the daughters, the sisters, the wives, you know, the men as well, just said enough is enough. You know, they didn't violently protest. They walked peacefully. They had silent protests. They had vigils. They were very patient. The police provoked them quite a lot, but they literally just stood their ground and said, we are not going to move until this is changed. And I wonder if this is a seminal moment now for British democracy, Richard, because as you've said, you've now started on the net zero crusade as well to get rid of all of that. People don't want these things, and now I think watching this, they'll realise maybe we can change things.
Exactly that. And that's what we should celebrate about a democracy. We welcome lawful, peaceful protest, obviously not violent or non-peaceful protest, let's be absolutely clear. But I think that these mums and dads in Epping, I think they forced the council to progress this legal action. And I think that their peaceful protests, I think, persuaded the judge that this was a significant variance to the correct use for that hotel. And so, yes, I think this is a genuine, significant victory for lawful, friendly, what's been sometimes musical, colourful, entertaining protest. And the flying of flags, the Union flag, the St George flag, have all been signs of great patriotism, great trust and belief in our democracy. And hopefully this, as you say, it's a turning point. It's a defining, seminal moment. Certainly that's what the reform councils will be progressing in our areas.
Yes. Now, you might have forgotten this, but about 12 days ago, Keir Starmer issued a statement in which he said that anyone who comes to this country illegally will be detained and returned in short order, I believe was the phrase that he used. As far as I know, they may have detained one or two people, but they haven't actually returned anyone, and 2,500 more people have come since he said those words.
Well, it's funny how the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, was very keen to say that the first people had been detained.
Yes.
but she seems to have forgotten to tell us how many and what's happened to them.
Right.
Have they been immediately removed, as the Prime Minister was so keen to emphasise? And the simple answer is clearly not. No one has gone, because if they had, then we would have been told.
Oh, they'd be singing it from the rooftops, wouldn't they?
Of course they would. If it was in the hundreds or the thousands, they'd be singing it from the rooftops. I suspect we'll be lucky if it's into the double figures, let alone treble figures.
Yeah.
And that this is just more complete waffle and nonsense from this government that's long on spin and chat and very short on actually action. And we can all see that the smashing the gangs policy has actually done the opposite. It's encouraged the gangs. Numbers are up some 50% this calendar year. And when the weather gets better again, the numbers will continue to grow very rapidly.
Yeah.
And that's why the government's got to completely and utterly change course. They need to follow the example of the previous Labour government. Back in the early 2000s, people were processed in the space of a couple of weeks. They had a week to appeal, and then they were done and gone, and they were deporting over 40,000 people per annum. And that's what the British people want. We know it can be done. We know that other countries are doing it. We know we've got a woke, lefty Home Office. You need a whole new immigration department, and we've got to push on hard with this.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because, of course, what we also know is that Yvette Cooper told us 12 days ago that she would be giving us regular updates on what was going on. And since 12 days ago, we haven't had one update. And it pointed out to me that Halley's Comet is also classed as regular, comes around every 76 years. So I don't know whether we've got to wait that long for an update, but it could be quite some time.
Well, I think the silence speaks volumes, doesn't it, from the government? That is the simple reality. They're lucky at the moment because there's been an easterly and northeasterly that hasn't suited the gangs. But just you wait. There are thousands and thousands of migrants in and around Calais and northern France waiting desperately to come across the channel. In fact, it's so safe now, many of them don't even bother with life jackets because they know they'll be pursued and picked up very, very quickly in short order. The people have had enough. And I think that the government now has a major, major challenge on its hands because the legal system will now be clogged up with applications from other councils. And it'll be very interesting to see that other judges confirm what this judge has ruled as well.
Yeah, I think so. Good to speak to you, Richard Tice. Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. This one from Chris from Bletchley, a place getting less like Britain every day, he says. Morning, Mike. The sad thing about this decision in Epping is that nobody trusts the government to do the right thing with it now. We know that they will still be deliberately working in the wrong direction for the British people. Yeah, you could be right. But I think people are going to be watching them now, so they're going to have to be very careful. Stephen Bromsgrove says, last night a Treasury spokesman said, we are protecting payslips for working people by keeping our promise to not raise the basic, higher or additional rates of income tax, employee national insurance or VAT. No mention of the fact that price inflation on everyday costs is taking lots of money off of ordinary people. Well, that's it. I mean, the breaking news this morning, inflation has risen to 3.8% in July, and that's the highest since January 2024, a 19-month high. So congratulations once again are in order. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. She is ruining this economy one step at a time. It hasn't got much further to go before it disappears altogether down the gurgler. This, of course, is Morning Glory, back after the news at 8.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would the people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... the smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another 2 grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer is on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You just can't say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Kevin O'Sullivan here with you for the next 3 hours after that, in for Julie Hartley-Brewer. We've got lots to talk about this morning. Of course, much of it to do with that decision that was made yesterday in the High Court about Epping and the hotel, the Bell Hotel, which has been ruled now to no longer be an actual hotel because the local council, the Conservative Council, and we'll be speaking to them a little bit later on in this hour in the form of Councillor Holly Whitbread, Conservative for Epping West and rural Essex. She's going to be telling us exactly why they decided to challenge the Home Office and say, do you know what? You've changed the actual methodology of the way that you run the hotel to the point where it's now no longer a hotel because nobody can actually book a room there. Nobody can actually walk in and say, I'd like to stay here for the night. Nobody can actually phone up and ask for a room because there are no rooms available, because basically if it's a migrant hotel it has been block booked by the government. And so what's happened is that they have been found to be in breach of the planning laws which gave them the right to be a hotel in the first place. This of course now means that every single other migrant hotel in every other part of the country is similarly going to be hidebound from working as a hotel, because they are no longer doing what it says on the tin. They are no longer operating as a hotel that anybody ordinary can book. So this has got massive ramifications, not just for the Home Office, but for the entire government, because they've been humiliated before a High Court judge. Let's get a voice note from Steve.
Morning, Mike. This is Stephen Harts. One thing we've learned from Epping is that the Uni Party is the enemy of the British people. We've voted time and time and time again to have immigration slashed down to next to nothing. And yet these traitors, they keep putting it up and keep putting it up, to the extent where Cooper has gone to the courts against the will of the people to try and keep these illegals in the luxury hotels next to a school where a child's already been attacked. One child is one too many. One life ruined for a British kid is one too many. Enough's enough. This needs to stop.
Absolutely right. Meanwhile, breaking news, inflation has risen to 3.8% in July. It's the highest level since January 2024. That is a 19-month high. Rachel Reeves continuing to trash the economy. Also, borrowing now has hit the highest level for 27 years under Rachel Reeves, Chancellor of the Exchequership. And the cost of a 30-year UK gilt now is 5.6%, which is higher than it was when Liz Truss crashed the economy. 5.1% under Liz Truss, 5.6% under Rachel Reeves. We'll talk about that. Also, we'll talk about a tipping point for drinkers. Apparently, people are going to be forced to pay a tipping charge when they buy a drink at the bar. And we're going to be talking as well about how J.D. Vance has stepped in over iPhone privacy in this country. And this is Morning Glory, 5 minutes past 8. Let's get it on. Have a look at this from John in Bakewell. He says, Mike, have all these institutions around the country been infiltrated by Labour supporters in all the top jobs? We're at the stage in this country where inflation and debt is the highest amount for 20-odd years, but they are keeping silent on this and not condemning the government. Whereas if it was Conservatives who were in charge or any other party, these people would be pandemonium every single day around the money markets. Well, yeah, you do wonder, don't you? How is it that Liz Truss's government sort of collapsed around the fact that debt was growing rapidly and the high yield on the gilts the high yield on the 20 or 30-year UK gilts was so high that they had to sort of say, we can't have this economy running by this woman. We can't have Kwasi Kwarteng running the Chancellor of the Exchequership. We must get them out. Why has that not happened to Rachel Reeves? Why, indeed, has the government not collapsed around the fate of the terrible, terrible debt that we are now in, the £50 billion black hole? How are we supposedly surviving that? Shocking state of affairs, isn't it? We're going to talk now to Andrew Tessenborn, academic and political commentator of The Spectator. He's got a piece in the Mail today, actually, as well. But let's talk to him about this situation around the hotels in Epping. Dan Jarvis, who is, of course, a minister in this government, has said for the first time, well, of course, we're looking at a range of different contingency options following from a legal ruling that took place yesterday, and we will look closely at what we are able to do. But as I say, the bigger picture challenge is the one that we are dealing with. So they don't really know what to do. It seems to me the government are completely and utterly clueless because they've been sort of sideswiped by this ruling from the High Court. You would think that they knew it was coming. Apparently, they tried to make an objection to it late yesterday, just before the case actually came before the judge. So they couldn't even organise to get themselves a proper case to put together so that they could convince the judge that he was going to maybe make a mistake. And instead, they're now sort of up the creek without a paddle, for want of a better phrase. Andrew, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks very much for joining us. This has really taken the government by surprise, which it shouldn't have done, but it seems to me they don't know what to do about it.
Well, I think that's right, because the really embarrassing thing is that the government are bang to rights here, to use a 1950s expression.
Yes. We like those here at Morning Glory.
If you get planning permission for a hotel, that doesn't amount to getting planning permission for a displaced persons camp.
Yes.
Which essentially is what the government's been trying to do. Now, what's also interesting is the way this has caught the government completely on the hop. They've known for a week, 10 days, that this proceeding, that this action was being brought. Presumably they thought, oh, well, the judge will find some way of getting rid of it. It was only when somebody presumably phoned them and said, well, the decision might go against the hotel, that they finally got their finger out and tried to intervene at the last minute,
yes,
which didn't impress the judge. Now, what this is going to do is to put a small bomb under the government's policies, because up until now, frankly, the government's policy has been to do very little apart from spend more and more money on putting people in asylum hotels. If you look, what they've done is they've said to their left wing, look, guys, don't worry, we really love asylum seekers, we're not going to do anything serious. And they've then gone to White Van Man and said, oh, well, we're going to smash the gangs, we're going to enter into some sort of performative agreement with Emmanuel Macron in France, which actually means very, very little.
Yes.
Now they are actually going to have to pull their finger out, and obviously they're particularly worried. They're absolutely spooked.
Right, because they don't have a clue. Because, I mean, now it appears, it certainly would seem that there's a legal precedent now in place, thanks to the High Court, that every single other migrant hotel similarly changed its use, similarly changed its kind of modus operandi, if you like, and it can no longer be categorised for planning purposes as a hotel.
You're quite right. You're quite right. Well, at least one local authority has already said that it's going down the Epping route,
yes,
which is Broxbourne, near
yes, I've seen that, yeah.
London. We've got a statement from Nigel Farage, whose party, of course, now runs 12, I think it's 12 or something like that, local authorities, that they're all likely to do the same thing, and others could join them. You know, we've had protests from Scotland, Greater Manchester, Norfolk, you name it.
Yeah.
So this is a contagion that's likely to spread. Now, the government, well, Dan Jarvis said he's looking at the options. Well, one would have hoped that he'd done that several months ago. But it's certainly going to have to act quickly now, not only to find somewhere to put the asylum seekers who won't be able to stay in Epping, but to stem the flow. In the end, for example, to make it more difficult to join the black economy, to set up proper reception centres for asylum seekers, because the other problem is that in the Epping Hotel, the asylum seekers very often are very recent arrivals about whom we know very little. And of course, the French and the Germans are much more sensible, because they do actually have dedicated reception centres where you can sort out who can then be put into the community and who can't.
Yes. I mean, the interesting point now will be what happens next. As you say, Dan Jarvis has not really indicated that they have a clue what happens next, but presumably what they'd like to do, because they've said that this would be their policy anyway, is to move them out of the hotels and put them into private accommodation. But, of course, we haven't got that level of private accommodation, so they've got a real problem here.
Well, that's exactly why I said they are going to have to do something and do it quickly.
Yes.
To stem the flow. This simply is unsustainable. And if one good thing has been done by this injunction, it's to make it clear that sitting on their hands and doing nothing won't do.
No, funnily enough, which is Keir Starmer's favourite occupation, isn't it? Apart from, travelling backwards and forwards across, international date lines, anything that happens domestically, he rather likes it to kind of all go away if he just ignores it.
Well, I think the government's been behaving like a rabbit in the headlights for far too long here, and it's now actually going to have to think what to do.
Yes, and I mean, legally speaking, are they in a bind? Because if, for example, they attempt to, we spoke to a Portsmouth councillor yesterday who's discovered through the workings of the Freedom of Information request that there are 22 separate dwellings which are now being set aside for migrants in Portsmouth. Not one councillor was told about it, not one individual was told about it. The government and the Home Office were trying to do it sort of under cover of darkness, if you like. Is there now so much scrutiny on the government and on this particular problem, the asylum seeker problem, that they won't be able to find houses, they won't be able to do it by stealth, and they may face opposition at every turn now?
I think they will. Of course, there is the nuclear option, which is emergency legislation, allowing them to override planning laws.
Right.
But that's simply going to make it make the government even more unpopular than it is. There are very few decent options available, actually, to Yvette Cooper here.
It really is a terrible situation they find themselves in, but it's a situation of their own making because, and I'm not going to give the Tories any room for manoeuvre here because they were just as bad.
Oh, you're quite right that both parties are equally guilty.
Yeah. But at least the Tories
very well have happened on the Tory watch.
Yes, but at least the Tories did in fact close down the Bell Hotel, and it was Labour who reopened it on the grounds that they needed to do it. And I'm being told that there are still hotels now being commissioned and set aside for migrant occupation in the future.
Well, no doubt there are. Of course, the other thing is that the government has, I think, outsourced quite a lot of the work here anyway.
Yeah.
It didn't want to get its hands dirty. My information is that a lot of the work has gone to some rather sort of peculiar Australian travel agency.
Oh, really? How
Yes.
bizarre! So, we know. I mean, we know about Serco, and we know about some of the other, organisations which are handling the sort of the I don't know, registration of the migrants and the transportation of the migrants, and then the further accommodation of the migrants. But I didn't know about the travel agency. What have you heard about that?
I think it was reported in the Telegraph yesterday, and actually there was a move to have the travel agency, which made the bookings at the Bell Hotel, made a party to the litigation. They failed.
Right.
But anyway, that's just an interesting background fact.
Yes. No, it is, because I think the more we find out about the workings of the inner workings of the Home Office and the government, the more kind of jaw-dropping it is.
Yes. Jaw-dropping and completely incompetent.
Yes, and possibly illegal, apart from anything else. It's absolutely amazing. Andrew, great to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew Tettenborn, their academic and political commentator at The Spectator, has got a piece in the Mail today just saying how difficult this problem has now become. And he, like me, thinks that actually it's not going to be so easy to deal with. You can't just suddenly go, well, all right then, so you're going to chuck them all out of the hotel, so let's just put them in some private residences and everything will be fine. You've got 400 men, young men, right? They haven't got room for 400 young men in the private accommodation sector. They just don't have it. So where are they going to put them exactly over the course of the next 14 days when they have to get rid of them? Extraordinary, isn't it? Mark from Wigan says, could the people of Epping have solved the boat people problem? Once word gets around that there are no more hotels for the illegals, the boats will dramatically reduce. Of course, Labour will try and take the credit for it. How long have we been saying stop the hotels and benefits and they will stop coming? A shame it takes the people of a small town to do this government's job. If the Home Office tries to overturn the decision, it will just prove they don't want to stop the invasion. Exactly right. I mean, if they start hanging up banners and saying, we've got to offer, solace and comfort and sanctuary to these people who are, running away from a war, that's more important than the feelings of the local population, then we will know for sure that they do not have the greatest interests of the British people at heart. And we will know that that is all they care about, the foreign invaders. And that is not where people would like the government to be in this country. Art from Newport says, morning Mike, loving the show. Surely it's not a £50 billion black hole if Rachel Reeves is borrowing $20 billion per month. It's currently a $280 billion black hole purely made by Reeves. Well, I mean, literally think of a number and multiply it by about 1 million and see where you get. Tony from Sussex. So where is Rachel Reeves then? Defending the terrible state of the economy, explaining to us why it has gone disastrously wrong, hasn't got a clue about why she hasn't been seen. Great show as always. Well, maybe we should just ask her why she thinks she's qualified to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Well, I'm an economist. I studied economics. I got a master's in economics from the London School of Economics, and I worked as an economist at the Bank of England.
Really? You're fired. What about Keir Starmer? He went to Washington, right? Mr. Starmer goes to Washington. Before he went, he made a video. While he was there, he made a video. And when he finished being there, he made a video. Have a look at this compilation of what he said and wonder and marvel at how he just keeps repeating the same cobblers over and over again.
Particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees and some sort of progress on trilateral
Security guarantees, coalition of willing working together on security guarantees.
Some sort of Article 5 style guarantees fits with what we've been doing with the coalition of the willing.
When it comes to security guarantees, with now the coalition of the willing security guarantees now working with the US at pace to work up those security guarantees.
Trilateral meeting seems the sensible next step.
Trilateral meeting followed by a trilateral.
The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact. It's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom.
3+ years. Hugely impacted. It's also impacted Europe. It's impacted every single family and community in the United Kingdom.
On Europe and on the United Kingdom, there's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. This is such an important issue. I think this is such an important meeting, a very important day.
That's really important for security in Ukraine, for security in Europe and for security in the United Kingdom.
A bilateral meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky.
A bilateral agreement between President Putin and President Zelensky. That was after a phone call between President Trump and President Putin.
We're able to make real progress. We can make real progress with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress.
Dear, oh dear. I mean, that is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland with a cold sore. How's the cold sore getting on, Sir Keir? It's a cold sore. 8:20.
Let's also not forget, Ian, I think far too many legacy politicos for far too long have turned out to be border abolishing, Janus-faced plastic patriots who've used our national flag as a mere prop. Yeah. And I think, look, if we are to protect our great civilizational inheritance, conserve Britain as Britain, I think the flag has a very central role to play in that. And I think it's about time where we stop in its track, this mad self-immolations of the very foundations of our national unity, and that's the Union flag. And it's about time, I would say.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 23 minutes past 8. Morning, Mike. I do hope someone from the government watches and reports your daily show back to our completely useless Prime Minister. You are consistently nailing him week in and week out. He and his Labour government have nothing to offer the genuine UK public. Excellent show. Daniel in Surrey. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, it's true. They do actually report me to him quite a lot. And they complain to me quite a lot as well. Not to me, but to my bosses about how they don't like the fact that I call him a liar. Actually, 8:23. Should we check? Should we see whether he's got anything out there? Because normally Starmer has put some kind of a tweet out before we get to 8:15. Let's have a quick look and see what he's about. Keir Starmer, where are we? Where is he? There he is. Has he got a tweet out? No, just one from yesterday. If you smuggle people into this country, you will face arrest, prosecution and a jail sentence. No, you won't. You'll just end up in a hotel in Epping, won't you? Anyway, never mind. I'm happy to say that Sam Morgan is here, Deputy Betting and Gaming Editor at The Sun. Very good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Nice to see you. I mean, this government is going from bad to worse. You know, not only have they now tried to basically sort of hobble the entire residential housing business, right? They've now gone after racing. we found out that the £51 billion black hole that Rachel Reeves has created, she wants to try and close by putting horse racing under the spotlight and raising the tax on it. Nick Timothy's got a big piece in the paper today on page 10. He's saying that she's going to turn a £4 billion British success story into a bit of a disaster. What's going on?
I mean, where is it going to end? I think you're going to be taxed for walking down the street soon, aren't you? Per step or something.
Exactly. Well, it's like there's more and more people who contribute nothing to the country, and those of us who do contribute, they're going to go, can we just squeeze you for a bit more?
Absolutely. And I think Nick makes a really, really good point here on behalf of people who often don't have a voice in this, and that's the punters. Racing, everyone says racing doesn't exist without betting. Well, you need people to bet on it, and they're the punters, and it's their voice, I think, isn't heard anywhere near enough. He says here that this is going to be basically Labour getting rid of everyone's fun again. People can gamble responsibly on horses. It's an activity from the first time you go to a racecourse to, I read a story the other day, a father was saying about his dad, a grandfather in a care home, the way he stays mentally sharp is by studying the form every day. And, and it's his thing, it's a quid bet every day.
Loads of people love to do that, don't they?
On a lucky 15. And his kick is not winning loads of money or anything like that. It's just he gets a feeling get one over the bookies, really. You know, he knows the horses inside out, and that's his love of it. But with this proposal, we're going to see, well, we might see it go from 15% to 21%, and basically the
So it's not like they don't get any revenue from it already. They get a 15% levy on every single bet that's made.
Yeah, absolutely. The key government quote I saw about this was to bring it in harmonisation, basically, with online games of chance, if you like, the slot machines and things like that. The government said it was to cut bureaucracy, because you can then have one strand of taxing betting revenue, if you know what I mean. And I just don't really understand that. That doesn't cut it for me as an excuse to.
So what is their argument, that they don't need as many people to actually administer the tax?
Absolutely, yeah, that's it.
But that's a kind of mad explanation by only people who are bureaucrats, isn't it?
Yeah,
go,
absolutely.
Well, we won't need 7,000 people. We only need 4,000 people. Well, why do you need anyone?
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's what's the knock-on effect of this? So as Nick rightly points out in his piece on page 10 today, you know, I'm lucky enough to have been to some yards. I remember going to Andrew Balding's in particular. These yards, he's a top trainer, right? Makes millions of pounds a year. He would be one who's worrying about this as well, for a knock-on effect for his owners. But the people who are employed, these places are like towns. You know, they have their own accommodation. They're often in sleepy rural villages where there's not too much going on apart from the local yard. As Nick points out here, if this was to come in, we'd see 2,750 jobs at risk in the first year alone.
Wow.
These people are specialised in what they do with horses. They know the animals inside out. You can't just let thoroughbreds to roam free in a field. They're not equipped for it. They're bred and designed to run and race. And if a racehorse doesn't want to run, he'll plant himself at the start and he won't run. You know, it takes specialist care to look after all these animals. And it's a big economy that supplies a lot of jobs for people. And then to just come in with a sweeping reform like this, seeing it as in the same category as someone who works in a roulette wheel and then just finishes their shift and goes off. You know, I'm not being snobby about people who get enjoyment out of bingo and things like that. And I think it's wrong for racing. One trainer in particular has come out and accusations he's been a bit snobby against how people like to spend their money in other aspects of betting. But racing's a completely different beast. These people do it 24/7 who work in the yards, and same for a lot of punters. You know, it brings people together at festivals. We've got York starting today, York Ebor Festival, one of the big flat race meetings of the year. Tens of thousands of people will be there throughout the week. It's a social gathering. It's an occasion. It's
a massive British pastime, isn't it?
Absolutely,
I mean, if you were to say, you know, name some of the things that Britain's sort of good at or famous for, and particularly when it comes to sport, you'd say horse racing, you'd say Royal Ascot, you'd say Cheltenham, you know, you'd say Aintree, the Grand National, all of that, because it's kind of embedded in your culture. For me, anyway. I mean, my father was not a big betting man, but we always, every year when we were kids, we would have bets on the Grand National, and I do it now with my own kids. You know, it's like one of those things that is part of a fabric of the nation, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, in an essence, we're already seeing, although this hasn't come in as proposed tax, which may or may not happen, top trainers are already losing horses to abroad. Aidan O'Brien, the best flat trainer in the game, he's based in Ireland, but just last week he lost 2 of his big horses. They're going to go over to Hong Kong and Australia. Why? Because they race for more money. and people can have a bet on them out there. The restrictions aren't the same out there, especially in Australia, where it's tied in more with the government, as opposed to several different bookies in this area, if you know what I mean. But if someone like Aidan O'Brien is losing horses to people with deep pockets in foreign countries, I mean, the guys at the lower bottom of the ladder here who are scraping a living day in, day out on horses, they could be gone. They could be wiped out. You could have a whole class of trainer wiped out. And then what does that mean? Well, people who come in at the bottom ladder with ownership can't afford to get any horses because they can't get anyone training. And it just narrows the pool of everything.
It's such a short-sighted view, isn't it? But unfortunately, this government seems to have this short-sighted view of everything, because almost every one of their sort of tax incentives and tax initiatives has not done what they thought it would do. They haven't really raised the money that they thought they would raise. And so I assume this would be a similar problem, where if people were forced to pay more tax on every bet that they made, they would just make fewer bets, presumably, wouldn't they?
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Another, which bookmakers would point out, is the rise of the black market. And look, arguably not even a rise, it's already here. You know, the black market's massive, it's unregulated, it's untaxed, there's no protection for the punter whatsoever. If you have a dispute...
And what are these people that just operate online or something?
Yeah, absolutely. WhatsApp groups, Telegram, you just go on hey, can I have £100 on a horse or whatever? Yeah, sure. I mean, there's no promise you're actually going to get paid with these bookies either. So it's completely on the black market, and it's already here, you know, it's rising.
And what about betting companies that are based outside of the UK? Can they get away with not paying the tax, or how does that work?
Well, a lot of betting companies are based in Gibraltar, aren't they, for these very reasons. But ultimately, everyone here, if you have a bet on a British horse race, it's gonna come under this tax. I just saw a really interesting case study, just quickly actually. The Netherlands this year introduced a staggered tax hike on all betting to plug a £200 million black hole. It hasn't worked. What's happened? People are placing fewer bets. There's affordability restrictions that come in, tighter regulation on advertising. It's all chipped away at people having fun and people's desire to bother placing a bet. So what do? They either stop altogether, spend their time doing something else, which, you know, I can understand, or they go to the black market as well. And Gordon Brown, I know he came in recently as well, saying we should tax more. He cited America as an example for, I think they have 57% tax rate in some states out there, but it's totally different. In some states, a bookmaker can have a monopoly on the market, and it's new out there. It's like the gold rush out there, bookmaking, because it's been illegal for so long. So operators are willing to shoulder the heavy tax because they know they're going to get so many more people coming in and signing up. So they're like, that's our...
Because until that moment, they couldn't do it at all.
They couldn't have anyone, So they're like, OK, we'll shoulder the tax for now, because we know everyone who wants a bet is going to sign up with us. So we've already seen in two areas where this hasn't worked. Or in Gordon Brown's case, comparing it to a completely different... It's not a like-for-like case, essentially, you know what I mean? But in the Netherlands, it hasn't worked. I mean, it's not ultimately to say that it won't work here, but people will turn their back on the sport. And as I said at the beginning, racing doesn't exist without betting, but you need people to bet on it. And if they decide it's no longer worth it or too much hassle, the knock-on effect is huge. It reaches everyone.
It's a shocking state of affairs, but listen, Nick Timothy's piece in the Mail, in the Sun today rather, Rachel's racing tax will turn a £4 billion British success story into an also-ran. Ridiculous. It's just another ridiculous idea. Sam Morgan, great to see you. What's the big tip for York then? Have you got one for tomorrow?
Oh, do you know what? My best tip runs today. It's in the 3 o'clock. Lambourne won the Derby. He's not going to win today. There's a horse called Karmers, who's second favourite in the market. He's going to beat him. It's going to be a shock.
Oh, wow. OK. Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Sam Morgan, betting and gaming editor at The Sun. Thank you very much indeed. Let's have a look at what's going on The Sun letters page.
Letters from The Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
And it looks as though there's an awful lot of people talking about Ukraine this morning. As Stephen in County Durham says, the only way we are going to get a quick end to the barbaric war in Ukraine is if Trump, Putin and Zelensky attend trilateral peace talks. It's pleasing how Trump and Zelensky both expressed hope that this trilat could happen following their White House summit and meeting with European leaders on Monday. One from Ashley in Cambridgeshire who says, could Putin be trusted in trilat talks with Trump and Zelensky? I doubt it. Would Trump end up with egg on his face for backing Putin? Probably, but I hope not. Finnish President Alexander Alexander Stubb was correct in the White House on Monday when he said more has been accomplished to end the war recently than in 3.5 years, thanks to Trump's efforts. Well, there you go. Not everybody hates him. Simple as that. 8:34.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 8:36. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock when Kevin O'Sullivan will be here in for Julie Hartley-Brewer. Let's get a voice note from Sam on the hotels.
Good morning, Mike. Great show. Yvette Cooper, she tried to interfere with saying to the court, "Oh, it will be against the ECHR. It won't be allowed to happen because, they won't have comfortable or appropriate accommodation." And that. Well, hang on a minute. What about the people that are being kicked out of their houses for these multiple occupancies? Can't the veterans and the people that have been kicked out of their homes because the rent doubled, and maybe all of us might, can't we go to the ECHR and saying we're in fear of our safety and the homeless are being mistreated badly because they're not getting any accommodation, let alone not very nice accommodation. So maybe we use the ECHR as our own weapon.
Well, it's not a bad thought, Sam. Thank you very much indeed. Many people have said that to me. How is it that the human rights of the British people seem to always be sacrificed for the human rights of people from outside of Britain? Doesn't make much sense to me. Let's talk to Councillor Holly Whitbread now, Conservative for Epping West and rural Essex. She's here speaking about what happened yesterday, that ruling from the High Court, which basically said that the planning rules now would suggest that the Bell Hotel is not actually operating as a hotel. Therefore, it cannot house the migrants in it on the basis that it is a hotel. Holly, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good for you. Good to see you, and congratulations for winning your brilliant case against the Home Office. I guess the big question a lot of people are asking me now today is what does happen now to those migrants? Do they get distributed into sort of private homes, if you like, residences, HMOs or whatever, in Epping, or do they get moved out of the area altogether?
We don't know at this stage, but what I would say is it's not the job of the council to find accommodation for the asylum seekers who were in the hotel.
Right.
It's the duty of government, and of course, if the government were to look at HMOs, which also have regulations as well, the council would look at ways of trying to oppose that. Because personally, I believe that would be a completely inappropriate place, particularly without the infrastructure around it, and actually, again, not knowing who's put in those HMOs and where.
Yeah, because the Home Office, I know you had sort of tried to reason with, didn't you, before you got to the case, the actual court case, where you actually written a letter as the council to the Home Office to say, we don't think this is an appropriate use of the Bell Hotel, and we'd like you to remove them, the migrants. And from my understanding is that they didn't even respond to that.
That's correct. I mean, we've tried as a council every kind of diplomatic and democratic means possible, and the Home Office just kept ignoring us. We then pursued the court case, which actually was against the owner of the Bell Hotel, as you say, for planning breaches. But even yesterday, the Home Office tried to intervene to block the case and actually keep the Bell Hotel open, just completely disregarding the concerns of local people in Epping.
Yeah, exactly right. And have you even to this day, have you had any kind of interaction with anyone from the Home Office or not?
With junior officials. So as a council, there have been meetings with officials where we have expressed our concerns, our opposition, and we expressed that opposition when it was reopened earlier this year. And actually, the line that we kept getting back from government is that all hotels will be closed by the end of the Parliament, which is 4 years, which obviously was not acceptable for my community in Epping and isn't acceptable across the UK more widely.
Right. And have you been told whether or not they're going to try? I'm told this is because it's a sort of an interdict ruling, if you like. It's kind of, it's not the final ruling. They can't really appeal against it, is my understanding. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, so the judge yesterday actually blocked the right of appeal, which was fantastic news. The council will look at applying for the permanent injunction, but in the interim period, what will happen is that the owners of the hotel will have to apply for planning permission to the council. I would hope that would get turned down. Obviously, that could be subject to appeal, but we as a council will continue fighting this at every stage and doing all we can and continuing through the legal channels as well.
Right, so as far as you're aware, the next step will be the removal of these migrants to somewhere or other, but they have to actually leave the hotel.
Yeah, so in 2 weeks' time, the hotel has to be closed for this purpose, and then a planning if the hotel owners wish to continue to use it for this purpose, a planning application will have to be submitted to the council.
Yeah, and your best wish would be that they get removed from the area altogether, right?
Absolutely. I think I mentioned previously that we've got 2 hotels within Epping Forest District, so we're already taking more than our fair share of illegal immigrants. And we've just seen, this site is completely untenable. I don't agree with the use of asylum hotels full stop, but with the disruption we've seen and also the incidents which have happened as a result of residents of the hotel, it's just completely unacceptable for Epping to have to put up with more of this.
Yeah. And have you had any conversations with any other councils around the country who have come to you and said, we'd like to do the same thing, can you help us?
Yes, so Broxbourne Council have decided to take legal action. They're actually our neighbouring council just over the border in Hertfordshire. Yeah. They've got a hotel in Cheshunt, so they're looking to take legal action, which is good news. And I think if councils can use their planning rules and use the law to try and stop this, it's a good way forward.
Well, it may be, it's the first positive step in the right direction that anybody's ever done. So, I mean, I think you guys will go down in history as real, game changers, because, quite frankly, consecutive governments have said they're going to stop the boats, they're going to try and arrest all the people that come, and none of it's ever worked. Whereas, suddenly now we've got a positive act by your council, and it might even be effective on the smuggling gangs who will say, crikey, if the rule is that you can't stay in a hotel, maybe they won't come.
I think so, and I think that's what we need. We need more deterrence to stop people coming over. If it was up to me and if I was in government, it would be stopping the benefits and the soft system that we have. But I think certainly deterrence, like having no cosy 4-star hotels to stay in, is good. But I do hope other councils follow suit, and we will keep going with this because we do have other hurdles to get through to make sure that this is closed for good.
Yes, and will you go after the other hotels as well then, the other migrant hotels?
Yeah, so we'll be looking at our options. The other migrant hotel has got a mix of women and children in it, as well as males, families. So our approach is to call for the managed closure of that hotel because some of the children are in local schools, but equally it's not in an appropriate location and it should be used for that purpose. So we'll be looking at our options there.
And just finally, I mean, as far as the occupants of the hotel, the Bell Hotel, I mean, how long I know it's been used for about 5 years. The Tories closed it and I think the Labour Party reopened it. But, I mean, how long would you say on average have the residents been in there?
So, as you say, it was open during the pandemic. Actually, under the last government, it was mixed use. So while we still opposed the use, it was the all-male usage that was particularly concerning. But it's been kind of, on and off for 5 years. There was that year closure period, which was very welcome. And then obviously we had the terrible news that it was to reopen as solely males earlier this year. But the inhabitants are in there for kind of a mix of periods. I understand that they're actually being processed slightly quicker than they were during the pandemic, but obviously there's just more and more going in because the numbers that are coming over, the government just can't cope and can't handle it. And quite frankly, they need to get a grip.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, this is a brilliant achievement. Well done. And thank you, Councillor Holly Whitehurst, very much for talking to us. Conservative at Epping West and rural Essex there, of course, as well. It's 8:44. Let's get a voice note from Nick.
Morning, Mike. Nick from Loughborough. All Starmer and Cooper will do is push through emergency legislation, enabling them to bypass the planning laws, proving that they can change laws when it suits them in respect of the migrant crisis. This is what they'll do. Nothing will change in my view, Mike. Hope it does, but I'm sure it won't. Have a good day.
Very cynical views, Nick. I'm hoping you're wrong about that, and I'm hoping that this government will recognise that it would be absolutely political suicide to try and block this change in rules and planning, because if they do that, they will be forever consigned, as Peter Bletchley said yesterday, to the dustbin of history. Steve from Cambridge says this: Mike, cannot wait for this week's Plank of the Week. So much good material. What a wonderful government we have, being dismantled brick by brick. And Bill in Cheshire says, Starmer's word salad waffle yesterday. Any US citizen watching this would work out that this whole Ukraine situation is a costly Biden-owned goal and a European problem. They are 6,000 miles away. Why do they have to pay for these EU and UK grifters? It's your screw-up. You sort it out. Now it's left to Trump to sort it out. Yeah, exactly right. Coming up, we're going to talk about Downing Street once more, because apparently, believe it or not, they're actually going to hire something like £21,000 worth of new digital staff in order to polish Keir Starmer's image. Don't think they're going to be very successful doing that, are they? 0344 499 1000. We'll find out what's going on in the world of sport at the Sun as well. This is Talk.
If your choice for tomorrow night was a patched up tent in Calais or a 3 or 4 star hotel in England, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? They're going to make the journey if they got a few thousand quid and come over. And they know there's very little risk in the journey now, because they've got a French vessel accompany them to the midpoint in the Channel, and they've got a Border Force vessel picking them up from there. So the magnetism of what we're offering is just far too great. And there is no reason why British taxpayers have to pay for this and put up with this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:48, I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. One from Gary in Norfolk. Great show, as usual. He says, you all sound incredulous at the ineptitude of this government. Don't you think that because the government are working to house these irregulars under cover of the night, that they are complicit in creating a situation which will blow up into something far, far more seriously? More serious, I should say. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's absolutely what's going to happen. Morning, Mike, says Ian in Merseyside. Regarding the sound bites you played regarding Starmer, securities, where's the security of our borders, the security of our streets, the security of our economy? The only guaranteed security seems to be our high taxes, with potentially more to come. Yes, it's not very good, is it? Let's talk to Dean Scoggins, though. He is Deputy Head of Sport at The Sun, because it's time for 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Dean, a very good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Mike. Yeah,
Good to
I'm
see
very
you. Hey?
I'm very excited by a lot of the stories on the back pages this morning. So
You are?
I'm going to start the only place we can where the transfer saga of the summer went up a gear last night.
Yeah.
As Alexander Isak publicly accused his club Newcastle of breaking promises over a new contract. So Isak wanted to leave Newcastle for Liverpool and is refusing to play, missing the opening day at Aston Villa and being fined a week's wages. But now he's gone up a gear in an astonishing note on Instagram last night. He apologised for not being at the PFA Awards, where he was in the Premier League team of the season. Nothing too remarkable there.
Yeah.
But then he went on to say that the trust is broken between the club and him, and that they've gone back on promises over a new contract. He said, when promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. So Ken Lawrence, our Sun reporter up there in the Northwest, has also added to this story today to say that Liverpool are now ready to launch a British record £130 million deal for the Swedish striker, who insists that obviously that leaving Newcastle now is in the best interests of everyone.
Yeah.
And just to make it a little bit more spicy, the two teams face each other on Monday in the Premier League at St James's Park, which will be a sensational atmosphere. But obviously we don't expect Isak to play for either club that night.
Right, the trust is obviously gone, as you say, so he's probably gone as well, isn't he, pretty soon? Mo Salah's on the back page as well. He's done the treble, you say.
Yeah, Mo Salah bagged a record-breaking third PFA Men's Player of the Award last night. Obviously richly deserved. He was by far and away the best player in the Premier League last year. 29 goals and 15 assists he had last season in a title-winning effort. And a nice little note to thank everyone who voted, and obviously everything at Liverpool this season is dedicated to Diogo Jota, who they sadly lost in that car accident last month. Aston Villa's Morgan Rogers was named PFA Young Player of the Year, and Mariona Caldente won the Women's Player of the Year award. She hit 19 goals in her first season at Arsenal following the switch from Barcelona. One that I'm much more interested in, Mike, as a big Tottenham fan, and that's on the back page as well, is that Tottenham have now reached a verbal agreement with Crystal Palace to sign Eberechi Eze for just over £60 million. One thing that's quite interesting here, with Eze wants to play Champions League football, that's why Tottenham are at the front of the queue. But Tom Barkley, our Tottenham reporter on The Sun, is hearing this morning that Palace actually want Eze to play in their European Conference League qualifier against Fredrikstad tomorrow night. You know, that could be the fond farewell to the Palace fans. We're sending reporters down to the Palace training and press conferences today, so that story will develop as the day goes on. Obviously, you can follow that on the Sun website. And Arsenal fans will be wondering why on earth Eberechi Eze is not going to Arsenal instead of Tottenham. And Jordan Davis, our Arsenal correspondent, has written a fantastic piece today on the main spread of the Sun to say that basically, as good as Arsenal have been this summer in trying to bring players in, the finances don't match, so they can't sell anyone. Arsenal's record sale is a pitiful £30 million, and that was Oxlade-Chamberlain back in 2017. So Jordan goes into all the finances of that, and obviously you can follow all the live blog at thesun.co.uk.
Brilliant stuff, Dean. Thank you very much indeed. Dean Scoggins there, Deputy Head of Sport at The Sun. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Here's one from Malcolm in Hampshire who says, listening to Starmer in the United States, you'd think he actually believes he makes a difference. I know. It's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, you would think that Keir Starmer was actually the architect of everything that happened, basically over in Washington during the week. You know, we've facilitated a bilateral meeting and a trilateral meeting. No, you haven't. You haven't done anything of the sort. Let's talk to James Ball, tech journalist, because it turns out that not only is Keir Starmer making a complete fool of himself across the pond, they're now looking to bring more people into Downing Street to save his image, right? They're looking for creative leaders, it says here, and makers with big ideas to join the team behind the Prime Minister and 10 Downing Street's digital channels. If you're passionate about storytelling, visuals and creating contact that reaches millions, this is your chance, so they say. James Ball, tech journalist, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, we watch videos all the time that come out of Downing Street, and I'll tell you what they're not good at is storytelling, and not very good at visuals, and not very good at creating content that anybody believes a word of.
I would agree. Look, I find this advert as cringeworthy as you do. I think talking about creating hero moments for Keir Starmer sounds like something that the Soviets would be doing if they spoke in 21st century PR speak.
Yeah.
But actually, like, I've been wanting Number 10 to actually try and speak human and speak on the internet for ages now. Like, you know, more people get their news from YouTube or from TikTok or from Facebook than they do from you or me. Yeah. And so actually hiring some people and taking it seriously would be great, especially if those people are someone who will look at a press release and go, and put a big red cross through hero moment, or half the sort of robotic way this government talks. So on one hand,
even if they could just articulate,
it's an embarrassing advert.
Yeah, even if they could just articulate what it is that people want to see. I mean, have a look at this. This is one of his videos. Which is pinned to the top of his Twitter. Check it out.
Across Britain, people get up every morning to go to work, to get their kids to school. They pay their bills, try to save a bit. They graft. The factory workers, small business owners, teachers, carers, those who serve our country, whether that's in scrubs or the uniform of their regiment. The ordinary people, the men and women who make this country what it is.
He only ever mentions people that work in the public sector as well, doesn't he?
I hadn't noticed that, but you're right. I mean, the thing I notice is just how slowly and New Labour-ish he talks.
Yes.
Everyone under 30 watches things at 1.5 speed, Keir. Like, come on. I mean, look, politicians can do this. I might not like the content. I'm a left-wing liberal, but Robert Jenrick is very good at this, or someone on his team is.
Yeah, and so is Nigel Farage.
Yes, but they need to look for someone like that, someone who speaks human and doesn't have this weird speechwriter thing. Look, I know he feels like he has to have Union flags behind him. He was sitting in between two Union Jacks like it was a sort of Spice Girls tribute gig.
Yeah, right.
That, you know, it needs to be out in the world. It needs to look a bit less polished.
Yeah.
It needs to actually talk about things that are relevant.
Doesn't it? A bit more natural, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe he's not the guy for that, but they've got some talent on this. Angela Rayner is clearly quite good at looking like a normal human being. I think in his weird, nerdy way, Ed Miliband can actually come across quite sincere. Like, now he's not trying to be Mr. Everyday Bloke. He looks like him. Get them talking about that sort of stuff they care about, you know, even if it's workers' rights or green stuff.
Is the problem
some of their base will like that.
Is it just the problem that politicians are just not very normal?
I think a bit of it is, but as anyone will tell you, they don't get far in politics without being able to work a room. Like, as weird as a lot of them seem on camera, a lot of them are quite charismatic in real life. Someone's got to be able to capture that.
Yeah, Starmer really isn't, though. I mean, I've seen him work in a room, and it's not pretty. It's pretty embarrassing. But there we are. Listen, James, very good to talk to you. Tech journalist there saying that what Starmer needs is to be more kind of everyday. I mean, he says the words, doesn't he? But he doesn't really mean them. What about trying to be more like an everyday person? And please, don't record yourself with a cold sore as if you've got some kind of herpes simplex B going on. Marlow is where John Lee is. He says, Mike, put all illegal immigrants into tents, good enough for Glastonbury, which holds 210,000. Tents are also good enough for them in France. Macron and the ECHR don't moan about them. Well, that's true too. Liz Truss may have crashed the economy, but Rachel Reeves has had it towed away for scrap, says Jess in Dover. And this one from Vicky. Just wondering, who is out for the government this morning, Yvette or Rachel? We know they won't dare come on talk. Great show. Well, you know, I haven't seen anyone out there today for anyone apart from Dan Jarvis. And Dan Jarvis's contribution to the general good when he was asked about what's going on with the Bell Hotel and the situation in Epping, he basically said, well, of course, we're looking at a range of different contingency options following from a legal ruling that took place yesterday, and we will look closely at what we are able to do. But as I say, the bigger picture challenge that we are dealing with is about accommodation generally. he seems to be saying that he's concerned that there is a single specific ruling that took place yesterday. We're clearly looking very carefully at the detail of that, and it will be for other districts and local councils to take a view as to whether they wish to bring forth their own legal challenges. We've got some news for you, Dan. You know, maybe you should read the room, because it looks like certainly all the reform councils are going to be challenging every single migrant hotel in their constituencies. We've also heard that Broxburn, which is a neighbouring council to Epping over in Essex, this one's in Hertfordshire, they're going to be challenging the existence of a migrant hotel as well. And so I'm afraid it's not going to stop. It's going to be a chain reaction. And as I said yesterday, this is like the first domino that has fallen. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to speak to Conservative MP for Wyre Forest, Mark Garnier. Also, Elliot Keck's going to be here. He's going to be talking to us about the latest tax that Rachel Reeves wants to put on your property. It's absolutely incredible. Plus, loads more. This is Talk.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 9. The sun is up, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it is, you know, daybreak, but it's not really looking very nice. It's looking a bit gloomy, it's looking a bit grey, the skies are a bit cloudy. I'm not quite sure what you're doing today, but if you're doing anything, just enjoy it and make the most of it, because before you know it, it's going to be taxed. I'm afraid we'll be taxed not once, not twice, not 3 times, but probably 4 times by Rachel Reeves, who's found out this morning that inflation has risen to 3.8% in July, the highest rate since January of 2024, which is a 19-month high, which means that no matter what they tell you inside of Downing Street, basically the economy is going rapidly down the gurgler, and it looks as though, in fact, inflation has gone up and up and up and up since they got into power. Don't worry about what they say. Listen to what they actually are doing, because, of course, what you'll hear from Rachel Reeves and from Keir Starmer and from Yvette Cooper and from David Lammy is that everything's a lot better now than it was under the Tories. Well, no. Because inflation, of course, went manic under the Tories. We got all the way up to 11% at one point, but that was largely driven by increased energy costs, right, because of the Ukraine war. And, of course, that's now still going on, but the energy costs have come down a bit, but not that much. But the government have stopped giving away money so that you can pay your electricity bill. But what's really happening here is that Rachel Reeves has lost control of the levers of the economy. She hasn't come out today and said anything at all. We've just been checking to see whether the Treasury have had anything to say about it. They haven't said anything at all about it either. They're probably still trying to think about how they can spin it, how they can come out and say, well, of course, you know, we brought interest rates down 4 times since we've been in charge, so that's all great. Well, not if inflation is going up and up and up, and it is 3.8% now, and that is very bad news. Big story today, though, of course, is all about what's going on in Epping. It's all about this ruling by the High Court, which is basically going to force the local Bell Hotel in Epping to get rid of all its migrants. We don't know where they're going to go, but basically the ruling came down on the basis that the planning permission, which was given to the hotel to be a hotel in the first place, is no longer now relevant because it's not a hotel. You can't book a room there. You can't ring up and book a room. You can't walk in and book a room or get a room because it's no longer actually open to the public. Therefore, this will affect every single migrant hotel across Britain and in the rest of this country, so that every single one of those places will be shut down, and what remains to be seen is what happens to the migrants. That's the big question. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, Mark Garnier is here from Wire Forest, the Conservative MP for that part of the world. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. It's Andy from Hull here. Great show as usual. Keep up the good work. Just on this morning's stories. Boots on the ground there. That's we always saw that one coming. But who's going to want to send the sons and daughters? If only we were in a situation where we had thousands of men with nowhere to live that probably needed a job that could possibly step into that role.
Well, it's a very good point. Unfortunately, the government doesn't seem to have a clue. Dan Jarvis has been out and about this morning talking about this, and he says basically that they are looking at a range of different contingency options following on from a legal ruling that took place yesterday. We will look closely at what we're able to do. But they're not sure, apparently, what they're able to do. The question is, what happens to the migrants who are in this hotel, and what happens to all the other migrants in all the other hotels when they also get the same ruling handed down to them? Let's ask Mark Garnier, Conservative MP for Wire Forest. Mark, very good morning to you.
Very good morning, Mike.
Nice to see you. This has put the government in a really bad place, hasn't it? They don't seem to know quite how to deal with it, and it could get a lot worse in lots of other parts of the country.
Yeah, it could do. So currently there are 32,245 migrants housed in hotels as at the end of March this year. That's up from 29,585 this time last year. But potentially this could mean that every single one of those migrants may have to move out. Even if it isn't, kind of the whole lot. We've already seen, I think that Nigel Farage has said that those 10 councils, county councils they're in control of, are going to be looking at doing this. And as you mentioned before the news, Broxbourne as well. So Dan Jarvis, as you so rightly say, has been out on the newswires this morning. I listened to him on Radio 4 a bit earlier. And Emma Barnett kept pressing him to try and come up with what is the alternative, where are they going to go? And he kept refusing to answer that question. He kept saying they're going to make alternative arrangements. This is a big problem. 32,245 people looking for alternative arrangements. One of those is houses of multiple occupation. Those, of course, are used by people in the UK who are homeless and need help also. So what's going to happen? It's a massive problem.
Yeah, it really is, because it appears to me anyway that there simply isn't the amount of space, despite what Keir Starmer said before the liaison committee a while ago. There aren't lots and lots of houses that you can put these people in. I mean, I think there's over 100 people inside of the Bell Hotel, and certainly the council there, we just spoke to them, are saying we don't want them living in HMOs in Epping, so they're going to have to move them somewhere else. So there's a challenge that as well.
Yeah, there is. It's going to be having somebody else's HMO, but not everybody's got them. I mean, I used to have 2 hotels here in Wire Forest, and in fact those were closed down a couple of years ago actually. But I'm not too sure where the where the migrants were moved to. I think some went to Birmingham.
Right.
It's entirely possible some of them have been sort of lost into the sort of the network around wildfires of the HMOs. But it's a massive problem.
Yeah. And where does it go from here, though? Because surely the end result has to be that they have to deport them.
Well, we can't. Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, the government has already set a target of building 1.5 million new houses, which obviously is not designed for this group of the economy. But in theory, everybody can move up and leave space at the bottom. But that's not going to work either, because at the end of the day, if you start putting in more houses than people can afford, the price of houses will come down. That sounds great, but no house builder is going to build houses into a falling market. So you're not going to get your 1.5 million homes. At the end of the day, they've got to come up with a proposal. I mean, the Rwanda scheme, which they cancelled, was not in itself a solution to the problem. But what it was trying to deter people from making that journey across the channel. And there are a number of different things which I think we can start looking at. Is why are they choosing to come all the way through Europe and then come to the United Kingdom? Part of that problem is we don't have identity cards here. I'm a conservative. Instinctively, I think identity cards are a bad idea, but I can see that there's a valid argument for them in this case. They get access to free health, they get access to housing, they get access to actually a dark economy where they can get away with working without necessarily having their national insurance numbers, all of that kind of stuff. They get free legal advice until such time as they really have exhausted every opportunity, which, if you think of an individual trying to get that legal advice, would cost them thousands. Yeah. So we offer, dare I say it, quite an attractive package, which is being sold by the migrant gangs.
Yes. Well, it's too attractive. It's simple as that. I mean, certainly the people that I speak to every day, Mark, say to me, we have to stop being so nice to them. What's wrong with putting them in tents? What's wrong with putting them in, former army barracks? What's wrong with putting them in a detention centre, for heaven's sake? We don't have to actually, roll out the red carpet for them, do we?
So I agree. So there is an issue of this, which is the interpretation of Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which basically says that you cannot treat them with inhuman and degrading treatment. Okay, so you've got to understand kind of where is the line between a 3-star hotel and degrading treatment. And that seems to be the problem. So there was this big argument, remember, of the Bibi Stockholm barge, which was apparently good enough for North Sea oil workers, but apparently not good enough for an illegal asylum seeker or an illegal migrant who seeks asylum. So you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, the barracks, surely disused barracks must be, kind of, as long as they're clean and not full of rats and stuff, then surely that would be good enough. Tents, the point made by your caller about going to Glastonbury and thousands of people sleep in tents over a long weekend. I mean, I get that, and a lot of people use tents, but I think for a long-term sort of migration camp, it may cause problems. Yes. But nonetheless, there's got to be an alternative which is less welcome.
But again, that is the other problem, isn't it? Because, you use the word long-term. It doesn't have to be long-term. If we had the system working properly, they would come in, they would be processed, and most of them would be refused asylum. And, of course, the trouble is that now we know when that happens, if they do actually get refused, they then appeal, and they're here for another year while they're appealing.
There's a massive problem about a number of asylum seekers that are being verified on an ongoing basis. I remember when Suella Braverman was Home Secretary and having a chat with her, and she said that she had managed to increase the number of asylum processes from 40 a week to 400 a week. Now, even that's hopeless. I mean, when you think about how many weeks is that going to take? Now, Yvette Cooper has increased it by, she claims, 115% or something. So that's nearly 1,000 a week. It's still nowhere near enough. So we've got to improve the efficiency of the Home Office. But it still comes back down to this fundamental point. Having met some of these asylum seekers, they strike me, the ones I did meet in these hotels, they're all young men. They were all ambitious. They were all actually, if you take away their background, take away the position they're in, they all struck me as being individuals who wanted to do well in life, and kind of actually a laudable trait. But the problem is they want to do well in life by gaming the system, apparently gaming the system that we have here, in order to come from wherever they have come from, actually France, to try and do well here in the UK. And this is a problem. And whilst we continue to allow that opportunity presented, I just didn't get the impression they were genuinely asylum seekers. They just wanted a better life. So by any normal definition, they were economic migrants.
Yeah, exactly. And that has to stop. There simply isn't enough room. We haven't got the bandwidth. We haven't got the money. We can't continue to hand them out, free everything. It's just got to stop.
And what's interesting about what you just said, Mike, is that I've got a lot of sort of kind of slightly right of centre chums and people I talk to and colleagues in Parliament, and even they, who in the past have sort of said, we've got to do the right thing by people, even they're saying, actually, we've come to the end of our tether on this. We have, I think, reached a bit of a tipping point where even the more moderate part of our society is getting thoroughly fed up by this.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there was a time a few years ago where not everybody was talking. I mean, we've been talking about immigration as a problem for quite some time, probably quite a few years, more than anybody else. But when it wasn't necessarily the number one concern on people's lips, and they would talk more about the economy sometimes, or a couple of other stories they're worried about. But now everybody talks about immigration, no matter where you go, because it's affected everybody, because it's no longer just, let's shunt them all off to some, rather, cloggy industrial town in the north, where nobody in Westminster is going to bother. It's happening now in London. We saw Canary Wharf, where the demonstrations are going on. There's a hotel not far from me in southeast London, which apparently is going to be taken over as a migrant hotel. The process is still ongoing, and the Home Office don't seem to get it. And I think Labour are kind of in shock, but they're sort of getting it. But you never quite feel like their heart's in it,
Well, there's a lot of Labour backbenchers who are enthusiasts on human rights, and it's not a wrong thing to be an enthusiast on human rights. I mean, at the end of the day, we've benefited from a lot of this stuff ourselves. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, Keir Starmer's got 415 Labour MPs, of which the majority are backbenchers. When you have a big parliamentary party, there are lots of opportunities for groups of people to get together and form strong caucuses of one form or another. We saw this with the Conservatives when we were in power, and now we're seeing it with Labour. And Keir Starmer runs the risk of his backbench rebellions causing him a whole load of problems on things which are quite important. And we saw this with PIP payments on the welfare bill, which was completely redrawn in the middle of its second reading, which was astonishing. So there's no thrust of that at all because of backbench pressure. And this is where the problem lies, is that, we could be... So take, for example, the interpretation of Article 3 of the ECHR. These backbenchers could start pushing back against where that boundary lies between what is and what isn't inhuman and degrading treatment.
No, that is the problem. That is the problem. Mark, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Mark Garnier, the Conservative MP for Wyre Forest. Let's get a voice note from Lisa.
Morning, Mike. It's Lisa from Canterbury. I'm absolutely ecstatic about the Epping Hotel High Court ruling. However, my only worry is with it, they're just going to hide them in homes now, multi-occupancy homes, where nobody's going to know. The Home Office is already doing it secretly anyway. I mean, there's never an answer, is there? At least with, I suppose, the hotels, you knew they were in there. But I just don't know the answer to it. I mean, they just all got to go back. Bye.
Lisa, I think you're right. They've just got to kick them out. They've got to kick them out. And the sooner we tell them that, and the sooner they get the message that that's what the public want, the sooner that happens. Because I think they'll realise that if they don't do that, anything short of kicking these people out will be a massive problem for this Labour government. I kid you not. But just in case you're wondering whether the perspective that you get from this show is the same everywhere else, just have a look at this. This is Sky News reporting on this story yesterday.
I wonder how the owners of the Bell Hotel are feeling, because this is a significant financial loss for them. And as a district councillor, surely you're also concerned about the finances of your businesses in the area.
Well, they've been doing pretty well out of the finances that they've received from the Home Office in recent years. And I understand that they have several hotels being used for this purpose.
That's Holly Whitbread, who's from the Conservative Council of Epping, who sort of bashed that one away. Because imagine being a journalist and thinking, I know who's the victim in this. Oh, it'll be the hotel owners. Well, you can always go back to being a hotel and just actually rent it out to people who are willing to pay money to be in a room. That's your business, isn't it? No, it's not my business. My business is getting rinsed with taxpayer cash. We've been given millions and millions of pounds to house a load of people that we can't vouch for the rest of time. That's basically what we do. It's a racket. And it's not going to go on forever. I think if the government declares that migrants will be sent to army barracks instead of hotels, they will disappear, says Maggie in Cheshire. Problem solved for the Home Office. The whole thing is a mess, and we'll end up with all these men remaining here one way or another. And Stephen Cumbria says, morning, Mike, you couldn't be more wrong about the government not being good at telling stories. That's all they do, day in, day out. Stories are fiction, and that's what Starmer does best. He really does. You know, he's sort of convinced himself, I think, that he's telling the truth every time he opens his mouth, when in fact we all know that he's telling a massive lie. Shall we check in and see whether he's put anything out yet? Because, of course, we were waiting a little while ago to see whether or not he was putting anything else out there, because normally it's just about after 8 o'clock when he does it. But so far, up until the last time I checked, he hadn't. No, he's still sticking with the one from yesterday. If you smuggle people into this country, you will face arrest, prosecution and a jail sentence. Oh, can we play it? Oh, this is the one. Yeah, here we go. There's 2 people convicted at the end. 2. Right, so what, 173,000 I think have come in since it all started. They've managed to arrest 2 of them. 27,997 migrants arrived in 2025, 2 out. So 27,000 in, 2 out. Brilliant. There's the talk.
There are ways for legal migrants to come into the UK. I think, first of all migrants who want to come here, and we've benefited in the past from immigration, they've got to be people who want to learn English and be a part of English or Welsh or Scottish or Northern Ireland society. Instead, they seem to go into ghettos or 5-star hotels and have no interest at all in actually being a part of our country. And you were quite right in what you said. It's stealing our country from us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I am Mike Graham, and we are here, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock when Kevin O'Sullivan will join us, and he'll take you through for the next 3 hours. In for Julie Hartley-Brewer. How on earth are these content creators going to improve Starmer's image while he still opens his mouth? Is one question. Yeah, that's a good one. Just wondering who is out for the government this morning. We did that one, didn't we? It's Dan Jarvis, who doesn't seem to have much of a clue. Brilliant news about the Bell Hotel, says Rain in Lincolnshire. I can't wait for the domino effect. Our culture clashed severely, and the government cannot keep shipping them around. They need to ship them out. Keep up the fab work. Yeah, absolutely right. Great show, says Peter from Seaham Harbour. Why does someone want to pay people to look better? If you watched your show, you'd already know what to do for free. Yeah, it's true. We do give him pretty much a daily critique of how well or badly he's doing. And I've got some bad news for you, Mr. Keir Starmer. You're doing it about as badly as you could imagine doing. They've managed, as Andrew Neil pointed out today, to get to the depths of unpopularity that the Conservative government got to. But it took them 14 years. This lot have done it in 14 months. You know, absolutely incredible. Inflation risen to 3.8%, by the way. That's the breaking news this morning for July. Highest since January 2024, a 19-month high. Rachel Reeves nowhere to be seen. We haven't heard from her either. Let's get a voice note from Mark, though.
Morning, Mike. Mark in Lancashire. What a performance from Starmer. And I think even after his cold sore's gone, long after that, I'm going to be calling him Captain Coleslaw because he's an utter vegetable. He's a total cabbage. He's shredded by the opposition and he leaves a very bad taste in the mouth.
Which pretty much sums coleslaw up, really, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, what's going on with the cold sore? That's so bad, so bad. Apparently he's gone back on holiday. So he interrupted his holiday to go to America for the Coalition of the Willing. And now he's back in the bosom of his family with Mrs. Starmer. I'm sure she's loving it. Let's talk to Elliot Keck now, though, head of campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance. He wrote a very interesting piece yesterday, a thread, if you like, on Twitter about this new mansion tax that it looks like Rachel Reeves is thinking of bringing in to try and make some money. It could well be that it's going to be an exchange for a new council tax. It could well be that high rate taxpayers are going to be forced to pay an awful lot more money for the purpose of for the likelihood of them owning a very expensive property, and they might have to spend an awful lot of money every single day with lots of questions. Elliot's got the answers, we hope. Elliot, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Very interesting, this, isn't it? Because your exploration of it yesterday kind of answered all the questions that I had in a way, which is, you know, exactly how would this work? If they do away with council tax altogether and they only tax you on the value of your property, how would it work, for example, for renters?
Yeah, so there's quite a few proposals that are milling around. One is to replace stamp duty with an annual tax on the value of your property, and the other is to also replace council tax with a tax on the annual value of your property. That's sort of how council tax kind of already works at the moment. It's based on your valuation of your property in the early 1990s, and then it's put into bands. But what this would do would, you know, on the one hand, it would sort of simplify the system, but it would also mean a lot of people end up paying a lot more because you'd get rid of things like the single person discount. You'd end up charging this on properties that students are in. So for a lot of people, they're going to see council tax rises, particularly in the southeast. But it's the replacement of the stamp duty, which is looks like particularly troubling. It looks like it's going to be effectively a wealth tax, a charge on the value of your property over £500,000 every single year, and that can mean thousands of pounds in extra tax for the average family home.
Yeah, because in the end, stamp duty is only payable when you buy a property, right? But this theory would be that you might pay this on an annual basis, regardless of whether you've just bought it.
Yeah, and the really worrying thing is that there are a lot of people sitting on houses that have increased in value quite a lot. So actually, they're sort of what you call asset rich. They have a sort of nice home. They don't actually have much cash. And so if they're suddenly being charged a massive extra tax every single year, they don't actually have that money available. And, you know, when you look at what the government have done in other tax policies, there's an element of class war about it. And I think the government are looking at some of these middle classes, look at them with a bit of contempt and loathing. Yeah. And they want to try and force them out of these homes. They want to try and force them to hand over some of their wealth to the states. Right.
And so, just to go back to my first question on rental property, how would it work if you're a landlord, for example? Would the landlord pay the tax and just then charge the renter? How would that go?
Yeah, so it's the owner of the property in every case that pays the tax, and they would then pass it on to whoever it is, whether it's the renter, normal renter, private renter, whether it's the student, whether it's the council paying through social housing rent, you know, whether it's the carer and single person. Yeah, so it's a landlord, but of course we all know that ends up being passed on in higher rent.
Well, exactly right. And of course, you're supposed to pay for your council tax for a bunch of services, right? So would that be broken down in a different way as well? Because it would mean that the council wouldn't be getting the money, but the HMRC would be getting it?
So under the proposals that have been floated, and there's a lot that we don't know about what exactly they're looking at, the tax on the first £500,000 of your house would go to the council, and the tax on the bit above £500,000 would go straight to government coffers. And I think, you know, that second bit, that's a bit where they're looking at what is essentially going to be a wealth tax in all but name.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it does seem as though they're literally, sort of looking at every single thing. I mean, we were talking earlier in the show about this new betting tax that they want to put on horse racing and try and bring, the 15% levy up to 21% to keep it sort of, in check with various different gaming problems that they've got. But it's almost like every single thing, if it moves, tax it. If it's already taxed, put the tax up. Try and, squeeze a bit more out of it.
Yeah, and one part of that is they're trying desperately to gain a bit more revenue. But another part of it is actually they don't care about the revenue. They just want to tax behaviours that they don't approve of. So you think of owning a second home. They don't approve of that, so they're going to double your council tax. They don't approve of sending people to private schools, so they're going to tax that. So there's a whole load of behaviours that they don't care about raising more money from. They don't like the behaviour. They don't like gambling. They want to go after gamblers. But then there's a whole load of other taxes where they think, there's a bit of wealth that they can tap into and try and squeeze taxpayers for.
So it's an ideological tax in a way, really, isn't it?
A lot of it's ideological, yeah, and a lot of it is just Rachel Reeves being one of the most greedy and avaricious chancellors I think we've ever had.
Yeah. I mean, where does it end? I mean, what are they going to find that they haven't taxed?
Well, I think the risk for the Labour government is that these proposals end up being a bit of a poll tax, and you end up seeing a revolt on the streets, and at some point it will end, and it's going to end very, very messily, and it could end with them being turfed out of power and Rachel Reeves being out of a job.
Well, that's what I hear an awful lot of, because people who have been paying taxes all their life are now saying to me things like, not only am I getting taxed more, not only am I being punished for actually doing well, not only am I being, punished for trying to start a new business or whatever, basically I'm now being taxed to pay for a load of migrants coming into the country, and that's the bit that's going to turn people off.
Yeah, exactly right. And migrants, of course, won't be paying these additional property taxes because they get their rent or their hotel room paid for by the taxpayer, but the taxpayer that is subsidising that is paying for that, is going to end up paying higher rent, higher mortgages, higher house prices and all the rest of it as a result of these taxes.
Right, and that's what really, really cheeses people off. Great to talk to you, Elliot. Thank you very much indeed. Elliot Keck, the Head of Campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance. Let's get a voice note from Elle on hotels.
Mike, love your show. Listen to you every single day. Got one of your bumper stickers. I think the way they're going to get round this, the latest ruling, is they'll leave one room that's bookable. Nobody's going to want to book it, knowing that the other 399 are got immigrants in. But that way, they'll say there is a room to book, and that's how they'll do it. They'll just break the rules.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, people do get around the rules. People do, but I think if they're in the spotlight in the way that they are at the moment, I don't think anybody at the Bell Hotel is going to try and pull the wool over anybody's eyes in the government or indeed in the local authority. They're going to say, because if they suddenly started doing that, they'd just go, come off it, pull the other one. If the Bell Hotel suddenly went, oh, we've opened up a room so that somebody can rent it, I don't think that would wash. I don't think it would wash with the public, I don't think it would wash with the council, and it certainly wouldn't wash with HMRC, I'm pretty sure. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, we're going to talk about the inflation figures with Justin Urquhart-Stewart. He's an economist.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:32. This from Mark and his mutts, I should say. Great show, Mike. The European leaders only went to the States because they were glory seekers. If any progress had been made, they would have claimed it. If it fell on its backside, then they would have blamed Trump for not including them. I did laugh watching van der Leyen and Macron fighting over who stood next to Trump. I know, it was brilliant. As I said, they produced a picture from behind Trump of all the leaders in front of his desk, and they clipped Starmer out of it because he was too far over to the left. So, you know, it wasn't important enough. Surely grocery inflation is exacerbated by the open season for shoplifters, says Keith. Shops will have to increase their prices. I doubt their insurance companies will bear the brunt. When shop prices go up, we pay more on VAT subject items, a winner for the Exchequer. Well, it's about the only winner for the Exchequer because most of the Exchequer's manoeuvrings under the guise of Rachel Reeves have not really worked. They haven't really raised any money particularly. Let's get a quick voice note from Luke.
Morning, Mike. Luke from Salisbury. Great show. Love watching it every morning with a common sense. The thing is with these hotels, which is good that they hopefully will all get shut down, but the problem is that the lefty lawyers will now be rubbing their hands going ching-ching to do all the high court battles and what's going to take twice as long and twice as much taxpayers' money to get rid of these hotels, what they keep getting put in.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Very nice. It gets more sophisticated every day, this show. Brilliant. Justin Urquhart-Stewart is here. He is an economist. And, of course, we know about Rachel Reeves. Shall we have it? Let's do it. Come on. No?
Well, I'm an economist. I studied economics. I got a master's in economics from the London School of Economics, and I worked as an economist at the Bank of England.
Yeah, thanks very much, Rach. Justin, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike. Great programme.
It never tires, that one, does it? I'm afraid, though, more bad news for Rachel Reeves. 3.8%, the highest inflation rate since January 2024, a 19-month high.
Yeah, she has to be the sort of opposite of Midas, really. Everything she touches does not turn to gold, it turns to dust. What she has to do is find ways of actually growing the economy. I know she keeps saying it, but she keeps doing things which are stopping the economy. Right. So diametrically the opposite. And now we've got this issue over what you were talking just now about the property tax as well. Again, this is something which is attacking wealth. There's nothing wrong with we must encourage wealth because wealth allows people then to spend more. If they spend more, they pay tax. That's how the government gets more money. There seems to be this attitude that actually being rich is obviously a terrible thing to do, making wealth is a terrible thing to do. Look, let's get sensible here. The only way we're going to be able to really grow our economy is encouraging people to have the confidence to be able to go out, set up businesses, have a go, make money, employ people and get them paid so they will pay tax on it. And also look at other things. This issue over what you're talking about with effectively the wealth tax on property. Get rid of stamp duty altogether and actually encourage people to move houses. Every time they move house, it's a great multiplier because when you move house, the kitchen goes, the bathroom goes, everything will be changed and adjusted because you do. And that employs more people, that will mean more income, that will mean more VAT being paid, and good heavens, Rachel will have some money coming in.
Well, she would, but I mean, it seems as though every single thing she tries doesn't actually result in raising any revenue because, you know, we saw the VAT on schools, on private schools, basically had the effect of kicking a load of people, 13,000, I think, children back into the state system, which meant some of them had to be driven around in taxis to get to a proper school that they could go to that had any room for them. And so they haven't really raised much money from that. They haven't really raised as much money from the non-doms as they thought they would because a lot of them decided to move away. A lot of people also in business have not hired anyone, so they haven't made much on the national insurance either. We've actually just got a statement from Rachel Reeves, literally just been issued about the inflation figures. She says this: we have taken the decisions needed to stabilise the public finances and we're a long way from the double-digit inflation we saw under the previous government, but there's more to do to ease the cost of living. Well, hang on. I mean, you know, the previous government and the double-digit inflation was all down surely to the Ukraine war. And they'd already brought it under control before the election.
Yeah, and as it is now, we're actually finding inflation going up again. And there's a fundamental point here. Stop squeezing the lemon to try and get more juice out of it. How about growing some more lemons to find other areas to do?
Yeah.
Actually be
Or
creative.
firing a few lemons from the government. That might be a good
Do
idea.
that. Yes, that's quite a bit. But there's an awful lot they can do in terms of actually making sure more business creation and that confidence is there. We know where the successful businesses are. We've got good high-tech businesses in high-tech centres. They can be actually given... They don't need to be given money. Give them tax breaks in terms of further investments. So the tax break would be actually getting capital in, which has got a half 50% guarantee on it. It doesn't cost the government anything unless the company goes bust.
Right.
Some will, some won't. But what it'll mean is that it'll encourage more growth in those areas outside the southeast, and will be doing so at a cost of almost zero to the government. This isn't very difficult.
No. We've got a second paragraph for you from Rachel Reeves, which is my favourite. This is why we've raised the minimum wage, extended the £3 bus fare cap, expanded free school meals to over 500,000 more children, and are rolling out free breakfast clubs for every child in the country. Through our plan for change, we're going further and faster to put more money in people's pockets. Well, that's just rubbish, isn't it?
Well, I mean, having free breakfast clubs doesn't actually get too much extra money in people's pockets, unless they're, of course, actually they're going along and actually selling the breakfast.
Yeah, right.
And as for this issue of raising the minimum wage, they don't raise the minimum wage. It's the employers have to pay the minimum wage, not the government. So that doesn't actually help anything at all. Much better than actually try and make it easier for actually companies, an incentive for companies to be able to increase pay. Why? Well, because actually you get more confidence coming in that way. How could they afford it? Well, actually by being able to offset that against future tax in the future, and to be able to be more constructive with these sort of things and use more imagination, and also encourage make taxation more positive by way of actually making it local, so you have some connection with the taxation, maybe infrastructure and things like that. Actually then also getting people to participate in it, so actually own part ownership of things in the region, such as maybe bridges or those sort of things, which can then be earning money and again connecting the local community. So there are those sort of elements which can be much more imaginative and constructive. They take time. Shorter term though, what they can do, focus on the areas we're good at. Smaller companies, which are the biggest employer in the country, give them the breaks and actually say to them, I tell you what, for the next 4 years, you are not going to pay any corporation tax on your profits up to, say, make up a number, £1 million or something. Actually, to get that going, that will give people the incentive to sit there and say, yeah, we'll go and have a go at that. And not only that, heaven forfend, actually get overseas investors coming in here, not to come and stay in hotels, but to actually set up businesses.
Yeah, I mean, that would be good, wouldn't it? But the trouble is they don't seem to have any clue as to how to make any of that stuff work. Justin, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Justin Urquhart-Stewart, economist, proper economist, by the way, talking about Rachel Reeves, who's basically said, we have taken the decisions needed to stabilise the public finances and we're a long way from the double-digit inflation we saw under the previous government. Well, they were a long way from the double-digit inflation they saw under their previous government because it was already stabilised by the time the election actually happened. She says there's more to do to ease the cost of living. Are you joking? Let's get a voice note from Judith.
Good morning, Mike. It's Judy from Altos, West Yorkshire. I'm glad they've won the High Court judges stopping the asylum seekers going into Bell Hotel. But another thing, yesterday there were a councillor on saying that the council didn't know that so many asylum seekers in HMOs, the government never told them. Now, to put people in an HMO, you have, if they're above 5 people, you have to have permission from the council and they come and inspect. So weren't the government breaking the law then as well by not telling the council, so they just didn't know?
Yes, I think that's a very good point. You know, they seem to ride roughshod over all local councils all over the place. The Home Office seem to do whatever the hell they like. The biggest black hole is between Rachel Reeves' ears, says Mary. Maybe they can house some illegals in there. Great show. Thank you very much indeed for fixing the foundations. It's 9:41.
touch, and they've got into government with no plan to deal with this, and we, the ordinary people, are suffering because of it, and it is unfair and not right. And I think also questions need to be asked was, if there was a possibility of an injunction, why has it taken till now, the 19th of August? Why wasn't the injunction done sooner? Why have these assaults and things allegedly had to happen for something to be done about it? Why wasn't this done sooner? The Conservative-led council should have acted on it sooner, and they haven't.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:43. Good morning, Mike. My girlfriend said it should be called the Coalition of the Not the Full Shilling, says Trevor in Harrow. And this one from Tony in Barrett, Furness. Will the migrants moved from hotels into HMOs or rental properties be fully furnished with new furniture? I did an FOI, but they refused to say. The answer to that is yes, because I know for a fact that there are people that I've seen being moved into properties in London, and the next thing you know, because we had a call about it, the next thing you know is a big van turns up and a load of white goods get taken into the flat. So, you know, they get all new stuff. Absolutely no question at all. Ridiculous, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. We've been telling you about inflation rising to 3.8% in July, the highest since January 2024, which is a 19-month high. I'm sure Kevin O'Sullivan will be talking about that. We've also been talking, of course, about the Starmer trip to Washington, D.C., which he seems to be claiming some kind of credit for. Front page of the Daily Mirror, though, says that British boots will be on the ground in Ukraine as part of a peacekeeping force if a deal is done with Vladimir Putin. Let's talk to Kira Ruddick, who is the People's Deputy of Ukraine. Kira, very good morning to you.
Hello, Mike, and thank you so much for having me.
Good to talk to you. Not sure yet really where this is going, are we? Because, I mean, I spoke with another Ukrainian MP earlier this week who said that Vladimir Zelensky is not empowered to do a deal with Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin if it involves giving away any land, or if it involves not holding the Russians to account and maybe seeing them turn up for some war crimes tribunals. Is that your position as well?
Well, of course, the process of changing Ukraine's territory is indeed very complex, and it starts from ending the war, lifting up martial law, then conducting a referendum, and then if people vote for this particular change, then this change can be made. It does not involve president signing anything, right? So I think we are right now stuck at making sure this step one is being executed on, and the step one is called ceasefire. President Trump has promised many times that he will get Putin to a ceasefire. Putin never agreed to a ceasefire. President Trump changed his opinion and said, okay, let's go ahead to a total peace deal. But the reality on the ground is nothing has changed. Russia keeps attacking us at the battlefield and the front lines and in our peaceful homes. Meeting of Zelensky and Putin is not being confirmed by the Kremlin. So we are going as we did, and we continue donating to our army, supporting our troops, and just hoping that this can somehow end up in a peaceful deal. But right now, it doesn't seem that the most important step has been taken.
No. I mean, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister here, came back and said basically that he believed that a lot of progress was made, that there was going to be security guarantees, but it's not clear what those are. And certainly he's told some people that British troops would take part in some kind of peacekeeping force if there was a ceasefire to be agreed. But it's just not very clear, is it?
It's not clear at all. Of course, the security guarantees need to be executable. And from what I heard, Mike, that the discussions were only to have to put some international troops like as far as possible from the front line so they can learn on the war. And I don't think that this is actually called peacekeeping, with all due respect. So let's see how things go and when we know more details, because I don't think having international troops and putting them into harm's way in Ukraine is necessarily a means to bring peace.
Right.
The way to bring peace is to pressure Putin the way that he wouldn't be attacking us every day and night. And we have never asked for international troops on the ground as the solution for the war. So I think maybe as a part where Europe can get involved in the security guarantees, it could be taken. But I will answer with the things that my friends at the battlefield who are fighting right now, they said, are those troops coming with weapons? If yes, maybe you should send the weapons first, and then we'll see, maybe you wouldn't have to send the troops.
Yes, I mean, indeed. And nobody's really asked the British people whether we want there to be any troops appearing in Ukraine. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer actually said about that White House meeting.
So, back at the British Embassy now after a long day, but a good day and a productive day, because both of the outcomes that we, the United Kingdom, most wanted, we've moved forward in a material way. That's why it was an outcome we really wanted to achieve today. The second is that there will now be a bilateral meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky after a phone call by President Trump during the course of this afternoon to President Putin, followed by a trilateral meeting with President Trump as well. Now, these were both the outcomes that we planned for and wanted from today. Because there was that sense of unity, we're able to make real progress.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you, I would say, are on the same page as he is.
That's true. You see, Mike, we have been saying since the day one that the worst thing that you can do with the dictators is to promise something, to threaten, and then not to go ahead with it. And so we really appreciate what Sir Keir Starmer is doing for Ukraine on behalf of British people. Last time, when the coalition of the willing made a huge threat to Putin being here in Kiev in May, no ifs, no buts, the ceasefire starts on Monday or there will be strong sanctions imposed. Do you remember what happened after that? Putin didn't stop, there was no ceasefire. Right. And the sanctions that were imposed, they were imposed like a month and a half later and without such a scare that was promised. And I think this is the massive mistake that's being done in terms of the putting pressure on Putin, is making a threat and not going ahead with it. This is the worst way of dealing with the bully and with an aggressor.
Yeah. And so what's your hope for the next sort of few weeks then?
That first, that there would be a way of ceasefire, because what we need is to have Putin stopped of killing our people. We hope that Putin will not be dragging his feet from the meeting with Zelensky, though we think that this is what he's going to do. And we hope that President Trump wouldn't go back to Ukraine saying that we have started the war and we are responsible for making peace, etc. These are the main hopes. Let's see how that works. After this meeting in the White House, everybody was so elated, and it honestly felt like peace may be closer. But then you come back to the reality where people are telling you that things at the battlefield are still dire. Then hearing about people being killed in Kharkiv and in other cities of Ukraine, and then you realize that in reality, nothing has changed.
And that is the problem, isn't it? Kira, very good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Kira Riddick there, People's Deputy of Ukraine, effectively saying nothing has changed, despite what Keir Starmer wants to say. And let's have a look at what Keir Starmer has said, because he went out he supposedly interrupted his holiday. He had a cold sore on his lip. He supposedly got on a plane from London, went to Washington, then made a little speech in front of Donald Trump and the other European leaders, and then came back to the UK embassy in Washington, D.C. and said a few more things. But it was all the same thing, right? Have a look at this compilation.
Particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees and some sort of progress on trilateral security guarantees. Coalition of willing working together on security guarantees, some sort of Article 5 style guarantees, fits with what we've been doing with the Coalition of the Willing when it comes to security guarantees, with now The coalition of willing security guarantees, now working with the US at pace to work up those security guarantees. A trilateral meeting seems the sensible next step. Trilateral meeting followed by a trilateral. The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact. It's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom. 3+ years. Hugely impacted. It's also impacted Europe. It's impacted every single family and community in the United Kingdom. On Europe and on the United Kingdom, there's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. This is such an important issue. I think this is such an important meeting, a very important day. That's really important for security in Ukraine, for security in Europe and for security in the United Kingdom. A bilateral meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky. A bilateral agreement between President Putin and President Zelensky. That was after a phone call between President Trump and President Putin. We're able to make real progress. We can make real progress. With the right approach this afternoon, make real progress.
Real progress? Well, not fake progress. About rakes progress. Kira Riddick said nothing's changed, basically. There's nothing to report. This from Graham in Wrexham. I was an EHO for a local authority. Judith is right. HMOs need planning permission and licensing conditions by the local authority, so they have broken that law too. You just could not make this stuff up. This from Pamela Bolton. They will keep HMOs down to 4 migrants. That way it's all under the radar. Well, that's interesting. That's one thought. Good morning, Mike. There is a purpose-built mothball facility on the Isle of Wight called Camp Hill, if the government are looking for immigrant places, says Paul in York. Well, I mean, there may well be. The question is they would have to basically agree to put them all somewhere in some kind of camp, and then they presumably have to make that the law. I don't know. But if it's a military facility, presumably it's treated differently than if it's a private facility, as in a hotel, and particularly if it's on military land as well. Let's get a voice note from Vanessa.
Now we've got a ruling on the hotels. Why not private accommodation? As landlords, we are not allowed to rent out to people that don't have sufficient ID or status in this country. We risk being fined or imprisoned. So how about they now challenge that ruling as well?
Yeah, why not? And I think that's what's going to happen. I think people are going to get wise to this idea that actually the Home Office can be challenged. The Home Office can indeed be asked questions. They can't just ride roughshod over every community in the country. Let's talk to Mary in Hemel Hempstead. Mary, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to hear from you. What do you want to say?
Well, it's really down to containment. The thing that people don't like is the fact that these people are here and they're just wandering about. I don't think that some of these military bases, if they were used, people wouldn't object so much if they were contained. But what is happening is they're just being dumped everywhere and just wandering about. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly right. And nobody knows who they are.
Exactly. You know, Mike, I have to laugh at that compilation you've got of Starmer. Considering this man is supposed to be clever.
I know. I know. I don't know how on earth he ever got a job as a lawyer, because most lawyers I know are quite smart people. He really doesn't come across as smart, does he?
No, not at all. And you know, I'm 88, Mike, and I'll tell you something. Years ago, we used to say, I won't elaborate, but you can guess, that when people had a cold sore on their lips, it's just they've been doing something.
Yes, well, true. I mean, I don't know how he got them. I mean, you get them when you're a teenager, but you shouldn't be getting them in your 60s, should you, really? You know, cold sores, for heaven's sake. Thank you very much. It's like a sty in the eye when people would say you've been staring through a keyhole or something like that. Maybe we'll get one of those next. This one from John. He says, morning, Mike. If the migrants are moved into houses in local areas, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. There is security around these migrant hotels, stopping annoyed people getting in to confront these migrants. That will not be the case when they're in local towns. Good luck with that one. Steve says, no more hotels, no more HMOs, no more ECHR, no more human rights lawyers, no more illegals, deportation now. Yeah, exactly right. Karen says, how about this? Yvette Balls' new title, Illegal Migrant Secretary. Yeah, maybe. Here's a voice note from Mary.
Hi, Mike. Mary here in Portugal. I'm just a bit confused why Mark Garnier is so against identity cards for people. We here in Portugal have to have residency cards. It's a small plastic card, a bit like driving licences. So everybody in the UK is already carrying driving licences if they drive. So effectively, that's an identity card. But the residency cards are great because then as soon as you're holding that in your purse, everybody knows that you're entitled to be here and that you live here and your address is shown. You don't get any stops when you go through customs, and when you go to the bank and have to sort things out, it's very easy. Or you go to the council and get things done, it's very easy because you've got your residency card. What on earth is the problem with everybody complaining about identity cards? It's about time the British actually came up to modern day standards and issued them to everybody that's meant to be living in the country. So I think it should just be done, and then people that haven't got them can go home to wherever they started their journey from. Have a great day, Mike. Bye.
Mary, thank you very much indeed. Interesting that, isn't it? I think there's a sort of hangover, isn't there, in terms of the sort of freedom of movement, if you like, in this country, where people think that if you get an ID card, somehow you're going to be tracked, that somehow the government's going to use that information against you. I know certainly there'll be people like Alan Miller from the Together Declaration who will say things like, you know, we don't want ID cards because it will be one more method of control that the government can use against us. And I take that point, and it's something that we should all be very concerned about. However, on the balance of the probability, I would say, isn't it a better thing to know that those who don't have them have no right to be here? And isn't it a better thing to say that if you can't be a legal representative or a legal entity in this country, then you're not welcome here, and you can just go the hell back to wherever you came from? And it's that simple. Morning, Mike, says somebody, John, if the migrants are moved into houses in local areas, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. Andy from Mansfield, if the councils aren't being told about these HMO conversions, aren't they breaking the law because the council have to sign off on it under the planning process? And Darren from Eltham says, why not put illegal migrants in an old army base and the